of all the papers, the shop, luckily. And she was looking for a job, and she was Mary Quant's design room manager.
And swimming pools, and everything from sort of not very expensive, ridiculously expensive. Because one of my kids is now coming back from university, and we're thinking, well, we should get him a shed to live in, just live in the garden, put some electricity in it, and he won't bother anybody else,
And hot tub.
Yeah, exactly right, absolutely right. So, I mean, it's been a pleasure to ask you about the function, I suppose.
Yes.
When you watch like the Grammys and the Oscars, and you see all these very expensive attire, looking shit, and wearing dresses, and what's the point of that?
Pointless.
It is pointless.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you agree, because
Like,
I just think they could be promoting something really interesting, like a young designer, and instead they put the ludicrous kind of outfits on that nobody could ever wear anywhere.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That Anna Wintour from Vogue, to me, running that Met Gala, has done one of the biggest disservices to fashion, in my opinion, because it actually makes it a laughing stock. And what we actually forget is that clothes are there to make you feel better, enhance you.
And hopefully make you look better as well.
Yeah, and actually make you feel better, that when you go out, you're actually ready for the day. And that's what good clothing is about, not that lunacy that you see.
No, she's absolutely. They call them.
Doesn't get my vote.
They call her the winter of my discontent, don't they? Because apparently she's a very strange, strange individual.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to see you again, Jeff.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
What's your kind of hope for the next couple of months, politically speaking? I mean, we get Burnham, we find out what he's doing. I mean, would you like there to be an election, or would you rather not?
I would rather there is not an immediate election. I don't think whether it's reform or restore, I somehow wish they'd get together. I think, but I think if it comes too quickly, we could get saddled with this lot for another 5 years.
Yeah.
And that would be absolutely to the detriment of this country.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I think if we run an just with him, that would also be to the detriment. So
Yeah.
I'd rather take the chance on getting an election organised than beating them at it. You know what I mean?
Well, heavy bet, that one. I think.
I don't think it is, you see. I mean, when you think of how many people now hate the government and how many people say they won't vote for them and they're sorry they voted for them in 2024, I just wonder.
Do you know what bothers me is and I come from a Labour background, you know, Ebbw Vale, my dad ran for Member of Parliament for North Lewisham. I grew up in a Labour environment. And the problem with that Labour vote, it's so entrenched psychologically, it's a difficult one to break. And I think, and that's the bit that worries me, that in spite of everything, still that sea runs through the country.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, as I've said now, that reform or restore could break the back of that. At
But you
this
see, I
moment in
think
time.
when you look at Makerfield, for example, so many people admitted that they voted for Andy Burnham to get Starmer. So it was a kind of a weird by-election that I don't know much from happened because it couldn't be around the country. I think a lot
About you, I was really shocked by that. I was.
Well, by the fact that he won, by how much he won.
He won.
Yeah.
That I thought it was going to be close.
Yeah. Turnout as well.
Hey? Amazing turnout, and it just indicates this entrenchment of this old psychological Labour background. And then you add to that pandering to the Muslim vote as another factor.
Yeah.
So I think I would dread it happening this year,
Yes.
for instance.
I just think that all of those things you mentioned are all set, but they, speaking, we're playing a Labour, getting Muslim votes, we're getting Greens, and so that votes still happen. And again, a lot of those vote Labour in general.
Yeah. Can out your children that, you know, they leaning towards the party because they.
Some of them are actually. I think they've shot their bolt with Greens. I think they've been a bit foul.
Because it's like, you know, the youth are thing to vote.
Agree. I don't. Well, anyway, they're sort of they're more, but they're still quite as bad as my right wing than I am actually, and our older brother is a bit soft, I suppose.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. England pulled off a chaotic 3-2 thriller against Mexico in the World Cup last 16. 10 men, Bellingham brace, Kane penalty, Azteca drama. We're through to face Norway because of course we turn up when it matters least predictably. Expect half the country working from home tomorrow with 5 a.m. pub licenses and near 30 degrees Celsius heat. Speaking of which, welcome to heat wave number 3 of the summer. Nothing says, we're fine, like sweating through your commute on the Northern Line while drinking a hot coffee. Police leadership, a total mess of nepotism and cronyism, says a review, shocking no one. Farage's dodgy crypto mate is still handing out reform cards, Kate's doing 3 peaks for charity, and Starmer's getting NATO side-eye. Same chaos, different day. God save the king, and pass the ice lollies. Laters, tigers.
Hi there, Mark Littlewood here, in Mike Graham's seat. But as of Monday the 15th of June, I'm going to be in a different seat for UK Live, giving you everything you need to know about the World Cup. Is it finally coming home after 60 years? I'll be broadcasting from the beautiful town of Calidore in Mallorca, which has vast numbers of sports bars for me to watch every second of every single match. We're going to have guests, chats, and don't worry if you don't really understand football or if you're not interested in it. This is going to be a sideways take on the biggest sporting tournament that mankind has ever seen. We'll never be offside, but you might sometimes see me bombing down the right wing. We'll be looking at what's happened in the previous night's games, what's going to happen in that evening's games, and we're going to be profiling as many of the countries as we can. There's 48 of them in this year's World Cup. What do you need to know about not just France and Argentina and Spain, but Curacao, Haiti, the Cape Verde Islands, the long shot minnows. Be there from noon weekdays on UK Live, joining me for a World Cuppa. See you then.
The revolution will be televised. The revolution will be televised.
Hello, what a bad picture, ladies and gentlemen. I am in Washington, and apologies for the terrible shot. I have great line speeds, who knows what's going on there. And to the 2,200 people are joining us, do apologise for the picture. We might be able to do something about it. In the meantime, I'm Len Topic here on UK Live, standing in for one and all on the morning that you've probably got a hangover. Not necessarily, of course. I don't want to cast aspersions. Maybe you don't like football. But today's a pretty good day to be interested because, lo and behold, even over here in Washington, D.C., there are people who think that football's important, or soccer, as they call it. Amongst those are not necessarily the Mexicans. I don't think they were too impressed yesterday. And we're going to talk about that inevitably, not for the whole show. We're going to make sure that we cover some other things too. But anyway, coming up today, we've got all kinds of interesting subjects, not least the fact that we've got some rather unusual activity when it comes to the great potential future Prime Minister, and that is Nigel Farage. Is it the fact that he's got things to answer to about in terms of his expenses? Once again, it might not be top of your agenda, but a lot of people in the chattering classes seem interested in this subject. Well, I'll be asking that question of Alan Cook, who has been a fairly senior reform activist for quite a few years now. And the question, I suppose, is, has Nigel Farage found himself facing a witch hunt? That's a pretty big one. Also, we've got Lucy White, activist commentator on stuff going on at RAF Barnum, not to be confused with Burnham, but we'll be talking about him too as well. And Andrew Bridgen, former Conservative MP, will be talking about Starmer's departure, and that does relate to Burnham, and so much more as well in the second hour. But before you go any further, staying with technical matters, let's get this right. We're using a YouTube redirect. Now, you don't have to understand this. You just have to understand what I'm asking you to do. We're doing a YouTube redirect at about 10:10 in the morning, and we'll be launching it, which will end Mike's stream and redirect people to UK Live. Now, this point, it might automatically redirect you, so don't need to panic. Otherwise, click on the link that appears and you'll be taken to the UK Live. So let me say that in normal human speak. You should automatically go from one place to another, and hopefully you'll get a rather better picture than what I'm seeing at the moment. And if that doesn't happen, then please, you'll get a link on the screen that appears, and then you'll be taken to UK Live. It's really as simple as that. I'll mention that one more time in just 2 more minutes, and then we'll see what's what. But please don't leave us, because we have an absolutely fantastic show. Now, as I say, please do bear with the picture. We're doing this across 4,000 miles. If you're in the UK, it's 7 minutes past 5 in the morning here. But I think of little else than being with your good selves. Let's hope that the picture improves. The miracle of the internet amazes me, because it makes it possible for us to be communicating at all. Winston Churchill never had Zoom, never had the kind of systems that we've got here. They just had to use the telephone. Right. Anyway, let's have a quick look at the newspapers if we can. And I should say, these newspapers rather prove that we haven't got the kind of predictive papers that you might hope for. It's all guessing. The papers that talk about the football are guessing, and the other ones just gave up and decided to talk about other subjects. And I fully accept you might not be interested in football, so you might be pleased about that. But let's go through them anyway. The Daily Telegraph, Donald Trump threatens NATO over defense. That's a subject which also comes up in the Times. PM facing, that's Keir Starmer, not the proper Prime Minister, facing NATO rebuke from Trump at summit. As usual, Donald Trump is moaning about the fact that NATO is not pulling its weight. He thinks that the United States is still managing everything that's going on. Well, we can maybe have a conversation about that, but probably not today. I'm quite keen to blame NATO on this terrible picture. I can see my team's getting annoyed about it too. Terribly sorry, team. Maybe there's something we can do about that in a clip or something. We'll find out. Now, the NATO thing, it's a conversation that we've had once in a while. The question is, do you think that Donald Trump is right to tell the West to pull its weight without America? Let's race on. Incidentally, just before, it's almost the time for us to make that change. So let me just do that slightly boring technical thing again. We're using something called YouTube Redirect. It's going to happen in about a minute. It should automatically take you from Mike's stream to this stream. But if it doesn't, you'll get a link on the screen. Just click it and everything will be well. And you'll be able to continue with myself and with my wonderful guests as we go forward. So that's what I'm hoping you might be able to do. Now, let's get back to the papers, please. I'll just go through those again. And the NHS treats dementia patients as second-class citizens, claims the Daily Mail. Clearly relating to the fury of Alzheimer's Society boss, who basically had a lot of complaining to do about the way that the state, and it's not really the Labour Party it's just blaming. It's blaming the NHS and essentially suggesting that Alzheimer's patients don't get treated very well. It's having a go at them. Now, I understand maybe a pill or maybe some drug which helps with Alzheimer's, but nevertheless, this is an ongoing and recurring theme in the Daily Mail. And it's all about whether you get treated badly as a second-class citizen, as they say, when you've got Alzheimer's. It's an interesting one. Do put your views in the comments as well on that if you like, and we'll read them out if we can. Then we've got Farage's future thrown into doubt with the Independent. They do tend to have a go at Nigel quite often. Is that good? Is that bad? Well, I'm not really sure, because the simple truth is, you go into a lot of detail whenever you start looking at MPs' expenses. I know I got a lot of heat when I was. The way I look at it is that it is what it is. You either are okay in the eyes of the media, or you're not. When it comes to expenses, there's and the way that MPs are seen. Of course, Farage is different because he wants to be the Prime Minister. He's being treated. We'll talk to Alan Cook about this. Once again, dreadful. If so, does he deserve it? Because he needs to be tougher than the others on the basis that he is actually an MP in waiting. I mean, you could just, it's a Prime Minister in waiting, sorry. Or are they just terrified of him and that's why they're doing it? Alan Cook says about that. Let's go on and look at a couple of the other picture of the other headlines as well, please. And going to that, notice that none of them seem to be able to cover the, some would say, of the England team. But I'll come to that in a minute. That's what the Daily Mail covers in the Mirror. Says Farage and the cons cash. And then down to the weight loss pill. That's in the eye. Weight loss pills from chemists, but not on the NHS until 2028. If you want to take that's the problem there. Big question about the extent to which the NHS should be paying for that. I'm not sure where I stand on that exactly. I do instead of actually they're self-discipline.
Yeah, go for it.
Morning, I'm Edward Hughes. England pulled off a chaotic 3-2 thriller against Mexico in the World Cup last 16. 10 men, Bellingham brace, Kane penalty, Azteca drama. We're through to face Norway because of course we turn up when it matters least predictably. Expect half the country working from home tomorrow with 5 AM pub licenses and near 30 degrees Celsius heat. Speaking of which, welcome to heat wave number 3 of the summer. Nothing says, we're fine, like sweating through your commute on the Northern Line while drinking a hot coffee. Police leadership, a total mess of nepotism and cronyism, says a review, shocking no one. Farage's dodgy crypto mate is still handing out reform cards, Kate's doing 3 peaks for charity, and Starmer's getting NATO side-eye. Same chaos, different day. God save the king, and pass the ice lollies. Laters, tigers.
I don't know whether I can tell this joke. Kay Burley told me this joke, right? He said, what? By the way, this is likely to clear. If we had a license, this will be the end of this. The end of this station. So what's the similarity between lobster thermidor and a blowjob? And the answer is you don't get either of them at home. Okay, so
Who told you that?
I'm not going around to Kate Burley's house again then.
So yeah, you won't be getting lobster thermidor around there, that's for sure. And anyway, I can remember that joke from that joke must be 35 years ago. Right? Yeah. I think if you get told a great gag, it is something that lives with you.
Hi there, Mark Littlewood here, in Mike Graham's seat. But as of Monday the 15th of June, I'm going to be in a different seat for UK Live, giving you everything you need to know about the World Cup. Is it finally coming home after 60 years? I'll be broadcasting from the beautiful town of Calador in Mallorca, which has vast numbers of sports bars for me to watch every second of every single match. We're going to have guests, chats, and don't worry if you don't really understand football or if you're not interested in it. This is going to be a sideways take on the biggest sporting tournament that mankind has ever seen. We'll never be offside, but you might sometimes see me bombing down the right wing. We'll be looking at what's happened in the previous night's games, what's going to happen in that evening's games, and we're going to be profiling as many of the countries as we can. There's 48 of them in this year's World Cup. What do you need to know about not just France and Argentina and Spain, but Curacao, Haiti, the Cape Verde Islands, the long shot minnows. Be there from noon weekdays on UK Live, joining me for a World Cuppa. See you then.
The revolution will be televised. The revolution will be televised.
Do you want me to do it?
Yeah, hello.
Hello, well, this is a bit crazy, isn't it? This is Pooch. Lembit was supposed to be down the line. Well, he was down the line from Washington and it didn't work. So big tip, always have a good internet signal, hardwired, not Wi-Fi. So anyway, we're going to carry on with the show. Who saw Mike's show this morning? Pretty good, eh? I wish I could dress as well as Jeff Banks. I normally wear a whistle, but this morning, not knowing that this was going to happen, I ended up with a casual shirt. So what do you think? Anyway, we have got, Meow Moog, lol. Yeah, lol, not many I've got. Hi, Pooch, says Ruth. Thank you very much. Who watched the game? Pooch will fix it for us. Yeah. Well, do you know, I used to be, I was an on-screen TV builder. I used to do 60-minute makeover. That's how I kind of got into TV. So came out of university, spoke some languages, trying to get a job, couldn't get a job. I ended up going to building sites and just made my money doing that. And then I got picked up by a TV producer and I ended up having my own TV show, The Renovation Game, and 6-Minute Makeover with Peter Andre, which was great. So yay, Pooch. Hey, I'm loving it. This is great. Anyway, I think, and look, it's a family affair. We got Scarlett behind all the controls over there, my daughter, and we've got lovely Elena.
Hello.
Hello, they're saying. Elena has just let me into a Russian idiom.
Oh no.
Something was going wrong and Scarlett did something and Elena said, I could suffocate you. And apparently, we thought that was a bit harsh. Apparently, that's what you say in Russia. It's just normal, you know. Hey, I could kill you. Doesn't sound great, does it? Have we got Lucy waiting?
Do.
Okay, let's say hello to Lucy White, who has been... Hey, Lucy, how are you?
Hey, Pooch. Good to see you again. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. I'm very well. There's just a few technical issues going on here, but we'll muddle our way through it. Good job I had a haircut as well. Look at that. Yesterday, I was looking a bit Mike Graham, so I got rid of that. So tell me, Lucy, what's been happening in Barham?
Yeah, so at RAF Barnum, the Home Office wants to place 1,250 illegal migrant men in a village of about 580 residents. So essentially, they want to put for every one villager, 2 illegal migrant men, which is just obviously insane.
Wow, unbelievable. So what's the protest been like? I mean, what kind of numbers? And is it people from outside the village or is it villagers as well?
It's mainly the residents of Suffolk, to be honest with you. So across Suffolk, I spoke to people yesterday from different areas, and they've all come together because naturally, even though the RAF base is in one location, these illegal migrant men, if they can roam around, there's no stopping them as to where they will go. They won't be contained, within the village. We know that from other areas such as Epping, where once they leave the hotel, they essentially have freedom to walk around towns and high streets. And so all the residents of Suffolk are concerned. And of course, there is a potential possibility that this could be stopped. And I think that the locals are putting pressure on the not just the MPs but the council, and every Sunday from now on I believe there's going to be a protest. And in terms of numbers, yesterday we had around 400 protesters, but it was very peaceful. The police were there. They were actually just making sure that nothing bad happened. It was a very peaceful protest, lots of flags, St George's flags, Union Jacks. It was everyone was in good spirits actually.
And are you getting the sense that people on the ground have come out against this because it's happening in their village, or is it something that they would disagree with no matter where it was?
I think it's something they would disagree with no matter where it were, but as it's happening in their village, they have to take direct action, because when it comes to these situations, you need to make your voice heard. You can't just sit at home and moan on Facebook. You need to physically get out there and show that you're concerned. And what I was saying yesterday at the protest is that we need to understand that the top 5 nationalities these illegal migrant men come from are Afghanistan, Iran, Somalia, Sudan, and Eritrea. So those are always the top 5 nationalities, which is highly concerning, as we know that from the last few years there have been many cases of rapes and of crimes across areas that have had these illegal migrant men. And so just based on pure data and history, it's obviously going to be a concern to have them. We know that these men broke in illegally, and we know that they are capable of causing harm. We know that sort of on average every year we get around 40,000 men break in through small boats, and we have even more. Well, in addition to that, there are those that arrive on the back of lorries. And I think the issue that people have had is that this has now been happening since, before 2020. It's been over 6 years. The small boats crisis has been happening. And even if their asylum is rejected, the problem is that they're not deported. So typically we have, of all the illegal migrants, around 2/3 of them have their applications approved. And it's not that they're approved because they prove that they're coming from war zones. It's because the Home Office rejects an application, which then increases the backlog of applications, and the Home Office needs to clear that backlog. So they end up just accepting it after a repeal. And what's interesting, Pooch, is if you go back to, there's a very famous BBC article, which I'll share with you after this. I think it was from 2002 or 2003, where Tony Blair had rejected around 90,000 to 100,000 refugee applications, but the government didn't have the political will to deport them. So even since, for over 20 years, we've been rejecting illegal migrant or refugee applications, but the problem is they haven't been deported. So even if they are rejected, they stay in the country. And I think that's what is a huge concern, is that they shouldn't be here.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the big issue here. I mean, my voice here, suddenly, you come into this country on a boat, it's illegal. Yeah, you are breaking the law. Okay, so you're then housed. Now, what's the process from these people being kept in detention to being brought up? I mean, I hear that the Suffolk councillor, is it Michael Morstan, he's rejected the fact that, he said it's totally unacceptable. Will this happen, do you think? And what's the sense that, is this inevitable because they've got to go somewhere?
So I'd say there is a high possibility that it could be rejected, because there are 2 small schools in Barnum, and Shabana Mahmood has recently come out and said that they won't be housing illegal migrants near schools. So we can hope that by that proximity of the schools, there is a primary school and a secondary school in Barnum and some schools in Thetford. And so by that fact alone, they should be rejected. But in terms of they need to go somewhere, we know that the Labour government have committed to closing down the hotels, which is why they're being moved into the RAF MOD camps. But they shouldn't be dispersed across the country. if you have a problem, you don't disperse it across the country, you contain it. And just with any problem, you contain it rather than disperse it. So they should be kept in detention centres upon arrival. There's one called Marston, which is by Dover, where they arrive. They should be kept there, and then they should be swiftly deported out of the country.
I think it's interesting that Mahmood would say that these people shouldn't be here because there's some schools nearby, and I think that's highlighting the problem, isn't it? Well, if it's that bleeding obvious that you do not want these men, all men, I assume, or 95% men around local schools, then you're admitting there's a problem. So you can't just transfer the problem and say, okay, well, let's put them somewhere else. The problem exists, but this isn't being cut at the root, is it?
Exactly. Yeah. So we know, as I said, the nationalities of these men from Afghanistan, Iran, Eritrea, Sudan, and Somalia are highly problematic because they come from very different cultures to us. And you would know that by speaking to anyone that served in the war in Afghanistan, because I've spoken to friends that served in Afghanistan, and they said they noticed the huge problem of rape, that the men would just be raping children, boys and girls every single day. And the problem with that was, they said, well, what do we do about this rape epidemic in Afghanistan? And they were told, we're here to serve a mission. We can't also be dealing with these cultural problems because that's not our mission here. So even speaking to friends that served in Afghanistan, they know the culture of the men is to rape. It's part of their culture. And so by bringing those men here, what do we expect them to do?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we're just going around in circles with this, aren't we? But, well, Lucy, thank you so much for coming on. Lovely to see you.
Yes, great to see you too, Pooch.
See you in the studio again soon. And keep up the good work. People really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lucy White there. Yeah, I mean, this is a problem, isn't it? We are going round in circles. I don't know what you think at home. I mean, I'm from a migrant family. My dad came here in the 1960s from Italy, legally. So, you know, I don't think anyone has a problem with migration. It's this illegality that is really sticking in the craw. I think until we get some proper action from someone in power, and it's not going to be the Labour Party, it's not going to be Keir Starmer, it's not going to be Andy Burnham if he comes in, inevitably, probably. I wonder if Reform would do anything about it. We hear them talk a good game. Rupert Lowe for Restore, certainly he talks very strongly on it. I'm just wondering whether or not the civil service blob will stop this from happening. Should we speak to Alan Cook now from Reform? Alan.
Hi there.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well. A little bit hot.
A bit hot. Well, I'm cool in here. We've got lovely air conditioning, which is probably will be banned very soon because of the non-existent global warming scenario. But and your
towel rails as well. They'll be gone.
Heated towel rails. Well, yes, exactly. So we're going to have wet, smelly towels. Yeah. So, how are you doing? How's it going in the Reform camp?
Absolutely fine. This is one of Nigel's favourite little expressions. When you're receiving flack, you're over the target, and all the media now is just attacking Nigel, attacking the party. So pretty much, we're in the right place. We've actually been ahead in over 300 the national polls now in the UK. So we are still the country's favourite. And as soon as we're in power, we'll start the detain and deportation. Detain, deport. That's what we need.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's the kind of battle cry, isn't it? My concern is that people do talk a good game. I know Nigel is very serious about this. Will it actually happen? If, let's say tomorrow Nigel came into power, Reform were in power, it would happen, would it?
We are writing the bills now that we need for the day we get into power. So the first week, it's going to be incredibly busy. We're not going to be like the Labour Party when they got into power, because they seem to be the only ones that didn't know they were going to win the general election. So our plans are being turned into bills as we speak. We've got Danny Kruger working on a lot of them. We're not quite on the Trump executive orders, 100 executive orders on day one. We're not going to be able to do that. Our parliament works a bit different. But we'll have the bills ready and we'll get them through the Commons. Obviously, we need a decent majority, so we have the mandate to do this. But everything is pretty much there. We just need a general election now so we can put this into place.
And how will these bills fare in the Lords?
Well, the Lords should not be a problem because we won't let them filibuster. We won't let them actually stand in the way of the will of the people. That's an expression that we've heard before. What will happen in the Lords if they go against our plans? We'll have the mandate to do this. Then we will somewhat increase the number of Lords and put in people who actually have the best interests of the citizens of this country.
But that's the process,
there's
isn't it?
ways and means of getting around the law without too much problem.
But that's not going to happen overnight. Will you be able to detain and house people in compounds whereby they could not leave that? They won't be given a mobile phone.
Yeah.
They won't be. Yeah.
That is the definition of detain. You won't have your freedom. So if you come here illegally, we do need immigration there, but there's different types of immigration. There's good immigration and bad immigration. Mass immigration and illegal immigration are bad. Other types of immigration we need. Why do companies employ new staff? Because they need extra skills, and it's no different. The country, you can treat it like a business. If you need extra skills in certain areas, then if it takes a while to train people up, then you can actually bring people in. But it won't be for the low end, low skilled jobs, which actually are a burden on the economy and cost us taxpayers all money. So, good immigration, bad immigration, and you have to make sure that you understand that there's two different types. But yeah, what we're saying is we will build enough space for 25,000 illegal immigrants as soon as we're in power. So we will build detention centres which are secure. So these people who don't respect our culture, who are potentially a danger to women and children, are not loose in our society.
And how are these people then deported to where are they deported to if they don't have passports?
There's ways and means of finding where they're from. At the moment, it depends on what we can do legally. When we're into power, obviously we need to take ourselves out of the human rights. We need to act. We need to leave the ECHR. We won't be leaving voids. Obviously, we will be replacing them with a system that actually works. We'll have the UK Human Rights Act to replace the ECHR. So we'll have one which actually has the best interests of the UK at hand. We would obviously use if we can't find out where their country of origin, and if we can't get an agreement with that country, then we'll use a third party. The Rwanda scheme had its faults, but we can improve on that.
I've always found it weird that when it comes to this ECHR and stuff like that, we adhere to it strictly. It seems like other countries don't really. For example, a plane about to take off to take migrants to Rwanda gets stopped on the runway because of some lawyer. Surely, let's say if Nigel were in power, certainly if I were the Prime Minister, I would say, no, just take off. I don't care. And then and the lawyers who are trying to say that you can't do that, well, just ignore them. What's going to happen? I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to fine us? Well, we don't pay the fine.
Oh, absolutely. Most of the EU is fining us constantly, but they fine other countries and they just don't pay. So I think this is where, the term grow a pair really needs to come into it. Unfortunately, our current Prime Minister is a human rights lawyer, so he takes international law very seriously and he'll put it above the interests of the country he's supposed to be looking after and serving.
Yeah, agreed. I think we've got Lembit back from Washington, DC. where he moved from his kitchen into a sitting room, Alan. So if you just bear with me 1 second, I think Lemmit's got a couple of questions to answer. There we go. Hi, Lemmit.
I'm so sorry about this picture. I do not know. I actually blame Trump. I think it's his fault. He's trying to get in the way. If you can hear me, the question, Alan, I've got is simple. We see all these headlines all over the
I'm wondering
press.
if it's anything to do with, I'm going to run a cable from next door to here.
Right, we can hear you, by the way.
Okay. Can you hear me, Alan?
What?
Can you hear
We can
me?
hear you loud and clear.
All right. Let me carry on then. I don't know what's going on, but I've got to ask you this question. We see a lot of headlines, partly because they didn't have the access to the outcome of the football last night. So they're focusing endlessly on Nigel Farage.
Well done.
Now, I think this is happening because Nigel, a lot of voices there.
The gallery, you need to mute yourselves.
Even when I tried to ask you the question, people tried to obstruct my question on Nigel Farage. See what happens there. The question is he being treated like the Prime Minister in waiting? Is he getting all of this coverage because they're terrified he's going to be the next PM?
Limbit's that right. So
Absolutely. The whole of the establishment is terrified that Nigel will actually become the next Prime Minister and right all the wrongs of the last 30 years. They do not like us upsetting the apple cart because there's a lot of bad stuff going on, and we'll find out all of it once we're in power, and they don't want us to find out. So, Trump had a field day when he got in and stopped funding NGOs and funding organisations that were actually acting against the country. So I'm pretty sure we're going to find quite a lot of that. But it's not attacking our policies. It's not attacking the party. What they're doing is attacking Nigel personally. A lot of it's old news. It's muck raking, and a lot of it actually is just completely irrelevant.
Yes,
they're making stories out of nothing.
I'm going to push you a bit on this because I remember I lived through the expenses scandal, when everybody was demonized. Some people actually went to prison for it. The counter argument would be this. He wants to be the Prime Minister. He has to be whiter than white. I've always had issues about trying to find perfect politicians.
Well, he smokes, he drinks, he had women troubles in the past. He's the first person to admit that. He can still do his job. Winston Churchill was not exactly the nicest person to live with, but damn, he did a good job. It's are you able and capable of doing the job? And no one is better than Nigel, potentially, at looking after this country, making it great again.
Well, very appropriate. As I'm in Washington, D.C., for all my faults, we've had some tremendous electrical storms here as well. But one thing that didn't cause a storm was Nigel Farage's attendance. He was at large in Washington, D.C. Over the 4th of July. So the bottom line question here is, now we'll move on to something else. Is Nigel Farage handling it correctly, all of this? If you were advising him directly, what would you tell him to do about all these stories?
Well, Nigel normally gets it right. And even at first, you think he's got it wrong. It normally turns out, no, actually, he had it right from the start. So I wouldn't second guess Nigel. And, there is no right or wrong. They are going to attack him and us, whatever we do, whatever he says, whatever he does. It is a stitch-up job. This is old news, and you are allowed to receive gifts from people, and you don't have to report them if it's just a personal gift. So, they've made a huge story, multiple pages. They've got it on their website as well as in the Sunday Times. And the Sunday Times supported Labour in the last general election. We know why they're doing it.
Well, yeah, we're doing it because they think he's going to be the next Prime Minister. Let's be honest about that.
Well, the EU, the UK establishment is worried at what Nigel will do and the fact that he is highly likely to become the next Prime Minister. But how do you think the EU is feeling at the moment? Because we've never had someone who actually does want us to deviate from the EU in power. We had the failed five from the Tory party for over 14 years. And then we had Starmer, and now Burnham, who's pretty much wants to pull us back in, even though he's quietened down on that because he doesn't want all of his the policies which most of his voters or potential voters for an ex-general actually don't like. An awful lot of the red wall and the centre-left electorate do not want to go back into the EU. So he's Starmer 2.0 basically, but on steroids. He doesn't really know what he wants and what he thinks, but he's not a man with conviction as Starmer wasn't. How many U-turns did Starmer do? And we've already seen the same with Burnham, and he hasn't even got the job yet.
I suppose a good analogy would be myself and the wonderful Pooch. As we solve whatever the technical problem is, if my picture goes bad, he can stand in. And thank you to Pooch. And he might be back again, depending what the vagaries of thousands of miles of cable do. Isn't there a problem, though, in reform that you can't do that? If the signal goes down on Nigel Farage, there's no one to take his place.
Oh, we have. So I didn't really hear the beginning of that, about cables or something.
No, I'm saying... Well, it's a good example. You get a bad signal, then Pooch can take over. If you get a bad signal in Reform UK, there's no one to take over from Nigel Farage. There's no obvious other leader.
For the last 50 days, Nigel has not been as active as before. So we've had Jenrick, we've had Richard and Zia basically leading the press conferences. They're specialising in different areas now, so naturally they all take these things on. So, no... Nigel is probably the best politician alive at the moment, but the party has grown a lot and we're still getting bigger. The funding's coming in, the membership is still growing, and we're still beating everyone in the polls. We're the largest party by membership in the country. So no, everything is good. Nigel is not irreplaceable. It would be a loss if he stepped down, but we have good people waiting to step into his shoes anyway. Nigel's always said if someone better than him comes up, it will be the first person to step down and let them take over. So this is not ego for him. And, we are a growing party with a lot, as something Richard said a while ago, we have a lot of talent.
Well, yes, including yourself, my good man, including yourself.
I did spend a whole day yesterday in a parliamentary training camp. So something I've done twice before, but all good fun. A lot of high-pressured media, aggressive interview training. So nothing like as pleasant an event this is, Lembit.
Yes,
as ever, you're very, very nice and not BBC attack dog.
Well, yeah, but because it's stupid. It's not a real conversation to just try to beat you. I find that kind of the journalism rather uninteresting, and I suspect guests, also viewers do too. Last question then, in the same spirit, and thank you for the flattery. You're just trying to keep me sweet. Let me ask you this.
I'll lend the flattery with it. I always seem to beat you at poker.
Okay, in that case, right back at you then. Okay, Makerfield. What were the lessons from Makerfield then? Some people say, oh, that proves that reforms we've had peak reform.
We were never going to win there against Burnham. No one would. Burnham's message run true, get rid of Starmer. That was our message as well. So people, it didn't really matter who they voted for. They will get rid of Starmer. So they've given him the opportunity to do that. But what people don't realise is he's going to be worse than Starmer. So I think our next message will be get rid of Burnham. I spent half a day walking around Makerfield with Nigel, and people love him. The conversations we're having on the doorstep were fantastic. Certainly from the old vets, we had a guy who is the last surviving pilot from the Korean War. You meet some fantastic people, and sunny times up there. Rob got an awful lot of support, but again, the media attacked him and didn't attack our policies. Apparently he put something a bit daft out on social media about 15 years ago. So, they don't do this sort of research on the other parties, but our guys, they look back. They go to ex-girlfriends, ex-wives, and just find any dirt they can to try and sully us. But people eventually will get bored of that and see that that's what they're doing. That the FT article was it's just rubbish, really.
we'll see how that plays out. Are you, just one question on this, because got to move on to Andrew Bridgen in a moment. Did you watch the football?
No.
Okay, just stop there then, because I'm not going to spoil it for you, but England won.
I have seen the goals.
I won this. It's $1. My lucky dollar.
You had faith in our guys. Well done.
Yeah, there was one Mexican in the room, but I won't go into that now. The Mexican wasn't too keen about it. Anyway, good to see you. And I really want to talk more about the situation, but it plays itself out. There's no point in us predicting. That's the other thing, pointless speculation. It's just a waste of time. Good to see you. Liking the shirt very much. Always make me look very conservative.
Well, you're nearly wearing a tie there, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. Okay, it's hot in here. It's 38 Celsius here.
You just actually started this by saying you're in a very well air-conditioned room. I'm in a 200-year-old house with no air conditioning.
That was Pooch, not me. He's 4,000 miles away. The aircon's not that powerful in the studio. as Pooch valiantly was stepping into the breach while we were having some tech issues. Still don't know what caused that. Hopefully the team do. Great to see you, Alan, and I've got to come and beat you at poker sometime.
Yeah, thanks, Lambert.
Good to see you. That is Alan. That is Alan Cook from London. Me here. That's an empty seat. That's Alan again. This is me. It's a laugh a minute. I'm Len Topic. Thanks very much for joining us on UK Live. It's interesting, doing an experiment to an extent. I'm in Washington, D.C., in a very posh house, which doesn't seem to have air conditioning. And there's a valiant effort in the studio. If the signal gets too bad, in order to spare your eyes, then we shall have Pooch coming in again on the breach. So apologies for that. I'm not an expert on these kinds of things, but this is the great thing about live broadcasting, and it shows how authentic we are here at UK Live. Please do just join and press the like and so forth, and that makes a big difference. Costs you nothing, but it helps us an awful lot. Coming up in a moment, we've got Andrew Bridgen. After the top of the hour, we'll be talking about Pride Month and the mess that Pride marches seem to leave behind. I've got some clips on that as well. That would be an interesting thing to talk about, I hope. And also, that's what Matthew Holbert will be talking about that. And Sean Walsh, writer and associate editor of Country Squire magazine, on Lisa Nandy, and as he would say, the great British flounce of Lisa Nandy, showing there might be some rather childish behaviour as far as the world's concerned. I'm not sure if we can do this. You can tell me. Do we want to play one of the clips now? I'll come back to it in just a moment. Let's go to Andrew Bridgen next. Andrew Bridgen, a former member of Parliament. Andrew, good to see you. You've brought me good fortune. You're clearer than Alan was, literally.
I hope so.
How are you doing?
I'm okay, thank you. How are you?
Okay, I'm broadcasting from a rather sweltering Washington, D.C.
It is a bit sticky in there in the summer, isn't it? It's a bit humid in DC.
It's right. It's because there's a ton of water all around DC. So
it was built on a swamp, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, the one that Donald Trump's trying to drain, though on the basis of what's happened to the reflecting pool, some people say he's created one. But let's try and drain another swamp. Alan Cook there was talking about Reform UK and so forth. And we ended up talking about Andy Burnham. That's the big picture question. What's your take on what may be anything other than a smooth transition between the resentful Keir Starmer and the at least neo-gracious Andy Burnham?
Well, following Makerfield, Andy Burnham was unstoppable. And is it Mr. Cook you had on before? He was correct.
Alan Cook, yeah.
I spent 5 days up in Makerfield campaigning for Restore for Rebecca Shepherd. And yeah, I spoke to even Conservative voters who were considering voting Labour to get rid of Starmer in that election. He was on the doorsteps saying what everybody wanted: vote for me, I'll be your Prime Minister, and I'll get rid of Starmer. And that was probably the most highly contested by-election I've seen in my 20 years in politics. At times, Lembit, there were more activists on the street than there were members of the public. Especially on polling day. On polling day, it was embarrassing, quite honestly. Just various gangs of marauding activists for every party was out there. It was driving around. It was unbelievable. It's going to be a coronation. There is going to be no challenger to Andy Burnham, obviously, because he's the chosen globalist candidate. And look at the timings, Lembit. So the nominations for the new Labour leader and effectively our unelected Prime Minister don't open till the 9th of July. They close on the 16th. There will be only one candidate. It will be a coronation. Andy Burnham will become Prime Minister on the 17th, which is the day that Parliament rises for summer recess. No PMQs until September. Only two weeks in September, so no real anyone can really attack him or put him under pressure, and probably until after the conference season towards the end of October. And of course, because of the timing, Keir Starmer gets to say that he was Prime Minister for 2 years. It's a pantomime.
Let's talk. Oh no, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
It's so obvious. One of us had to say it, and we both did in the end. This pantomime, though, it's an interesting point actually you make, because the last thing Labour wanted, it seems, was an actual election. After all the sanctimony they threw towards the Conservatives, who were changing their leaders, as you know more than most, because you were right there in it.
They were coming and going faster than London buses at one stage. So we've had 6 prime ministers in 7 years, 7 in 10. I would say the shelf life of prime ministers is reducing. I think that we could be back in the same situation that we find ourselves now with Keir Starmer, with Andy Burnham in 12 months. I personally think, and I know Andy Burnham said we're not having an early election, but Keir Starmer said he wasn't going to touch the winter fuel allowance either. But I mean, things happen. You're right about your earlier interview, the points you made about Nigel Farage. I don't think he's going to survive politically the fallout from the Harborne and others donations. And as Reform's vote drops, Restore is going to go up, and Labour will judge the crossover point for a snap general election. And it really depends how fast Nigel Farage falls. But I would suspect that the long stop date for a general election is a year this week, and that's what Labour will be looking at.
That's interesting. I have a different view. Just on the first point, on the Nigel Farage point, it's obvious that the press are really gunning for Nigel, and they wouldn't be doing it if they didn't think he had a serious prospect of potentially becoming Prime Minister. In terms of the actual accusations, I'm more sanguine. I just feel it's so easy. You and I have both been slammed in the media for stuff.
Yeah, but there's a lot more to come out that hasn't come out about Nigel that I know. I'm not going to put myself into a court case by disclosing it now, but I think there's a lot more to come out, and it's going to be fairly unsavoury.
All right, well, then you may know things that I don't. He seemed in fairly good form when he was here in Washington. I presume he's back in Britain now. But okay, on that one, it's a good teaser. Please do come and give us the exclusive here on UK Live if you're willing to at some point. I'll buy you a coffee for that from here.
Thank you.
As long as it's less than $1. But to this other point, this general election point, am I the only person in the chattering classes who thinks that Burnham would be crazy, Andy Burnham would be crazy to not take 3 years, which is handed to him on a plate, especially since there are at least 150 Labour MPs that are saying, whatever you do, do not have the general election because we'll lose our jobs?
Well, you're presuming that it's going to be Andy Burnham's decision. Do you think it was Rishi Sunak's decision to torpedo the Conservative Party in with a July election in 2024. I mean,
World Economic Forum, I think. I think the left told him to go for it.
Well, and yeah, well, he had a nice visit from was it Obama just before, and Bill Gates, and I think they just told him. Yeah, I never saw a man look so happy as after he lost the general election on television with a massive majority for Labour.
There are about 600 million reasons why he won't be living in poverty, unlike us potentially, relative poverty for us.
I'm sure the 11% of shares he had an interest in Moderna will have helped that he bought in 2016 in his offshore trust in the Cayman Islands. Theleme Partners. Yes, who knew? Well, how lucky he was.
He's just a lucky guy all the way through. Perhaps even lucky not to be prime minister. But this general election point, and if you've got the time, I'd like you to stay till after the break. So we'll go to the news in a few minutes. But let's just get this out of the way. I don't think that. You say whose decision it is.
Well, I think Burnham will be back in the same position as Starmer in 12 months' time, and I think he knows that. His leeway is limited. The King's speech has happened. That set out the legislative procedure for the next policies for the next 18 months. Why will it be any different? And all we're doing is changing the human shield on some very, very unpopular policies.
Well, that's what I want to talk about after the break. I want to talk about Andy's performance. And once again, perhaps I present a minority view, but what is life without true debate? Just on the general election point, though, there are two reasons, very simple reasons, why I don't think Andy will go before then. Number one, his MPs won't let him, because they'll say, just give us these 3 years, we'll take our chances in 2029. And secondly, he's squandering his chance to be guaranteed to be a prime minister for longer than Keir Starmer.
Yes, but did Rishi Sunak consult his MPs about the general election? Obviously, his PPS knew because he put a bet on when the election was having had a briefing. But no, he didn't. It came out of the blue for the Conservative MPs. So by the time the first the MPs know is when the Prime Minister's been to the King and is having a general election.
Yeah, that's true. No, not everybody. At least one person put a juicy bet on.
Yes, the Prime Minister's PPS, he knew, so he put a bet on. For what, 300 quid? 300 quid. Whatever happened to that? I never heard whether he went to prison for that or not.
No, he didn't. By a weird coincidence, he happened to be the MP for my old constituency. Montgomery.
They do pick them there, don't they?
Hypocrite. You hypocrite. Oh, well, on that point, maybe we should go to the news of it. Don't go anywhere. As I calm down from my ire. Lucky I'm not there. Lucky I'm not closer, because I'd give you what for. No, I can't advertise that. You are watching UK Live, doing an interesting thing with me, Lembit Opik, and Andrew Bridgen, former MP as well. After the break, we're going to be continuing with Andrew, and he's put a tantalising question for us to consider, and that's really Andy Burnham's potential performance. I want to throw a few things in the ring as well. I'm dying to know what you know, Andrew, about Nigel Farage, but please don't say it, because I think we end up in trouble too if you do, unless you can prove it. I'm going to see, is it time if we can get a little bit of news?
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. England pulled off a chaotic 3-2 thriller against Mexico in the World Cup last 16. 10 men, Bellingham brace, Kane penalty, Azteca drama. We're through to face Norway because, of course, we turn up when it matters least predictably. Expect half the country working from home tomorrow with 5 a.m. pub licences and near 30 degrees Celsius heat. Speaking of which, welcome to heatwave number 3 of the summer. Nothing says, we're fine, like sweating through your commute on the Northern Line while drinking a hot coffee. Police leadership, a total mess of nepotism and cronyism, says a review, shocking no one. Farage's dodgy crypto mate is still handing out reform cards, Kate's doing 3 peaks for charity, and Starmer's getting NATO side-eye. Same chaos, different day. God save the king, and pass the ice lollies. Laters, tigers.
I would say he's about the only person as cynical as you are, Andrew.
Well, he's obviously, well, a cynic is just an optimist who's been in Parliament for a bit. You know that, Lembit.
Well, welcome if you've just joined us. I'm Len Topic here from Washington, D.C. in the United States, where I observed the 4th of July celebrations. And shouts of treason from not the Tories, they shout treason all the time. Shouts of treason from the Brits over here, but all in the best possible taste. Coming up in this hour, just before we go back to talking to Andrew, we've got some absolutely great guests. We're going to talk about why does the Pride March agenda leave such a terrible mess whenever they leave. And what do you feel about it? We might get a clip on that as well. I'm also hoping we might play, just to provoke Andrew, a clip of Keir Starmer talking about hair gel. We'll see. But Matthew Hulbert will be joining us in a short while as well. Radio commentator and TV commentator. And the politics of LGBT identity. We won't go into that with Andrew because it's just a red rag to a bull. Later on, Sean Walsh, writer and associate editor of Country Squire magazine, will be joining us on Lisa Nandy's little hissy fit. Andrew, you strike me as the kind of person who probably would read Country Squire magazine.
I have seen it on various tables. Yeah, I'm a sort of country guy. Northwest Cheshire is semi-rural, and yeah, it's a great place to live. I could never call London my home. You can exist there, but I mean, I just love the countryside. It's where I feel far more comfortable.
Well, here in my United States residence, I can't back.
Well, I did have an 1805 Grade 2 rectory in 14 acres of gardens in Northwest Leicestershire until HS2 put the line right next to it and stole it off me for $500,000 less than it was worth. I was the only MP, mysteriously having opposed HS2 all the way through. I was the only MP that had to sell a property to HS2, and they absolutely fiddled everybody on the prices.
So they hate you so much they deliberately moved the HS2 line.
Worse than that, I'll let you into a little secret. So I had to sell it a week before the transaction went through, a week before the 2015 election. Then we had Theresa May, and obviously I wasn't in her good books. And then we had the 2017 election, and people started putting rumours out in the constituency that I'd sold my house to HS2 and made a fortune, which was exactly the opposite of the truth. And then illegal leaflets appeared and went through every door in the run-up to that election, with no imprint on them, saying that I'd sold my house to my mates in the government and made a fortune to HS2. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll just go and get the page out of the land registry showing what I paid 5 years before and what they paid me. So I paid 2.2 and they gave me 1.89, and I'd spent money on the house plus the stamp duty. And the government had masked my the price I paid for the house, and I had to pay £30 and wait, I think, 6 weeks to get it, so I couldn't do it before the election. But I still got back in with a bigger majority. And I thought the Labour Party had done that to me, spreading that foul rumour that I'd made money out of selling the house to HS2. And actually, it was the government that had done it to me, because they are the only ones who had the power to delete off the land registry what I'd paid for the house. But what didn't delete it, they hid it. They hid it. And that is not a coincidence, Lembit. And then in 2023, I thought I'd be done with HS2. So it's 8 years after they've robbed the house off me. I'm still sore from it. And my eldest son was in America. He was 23. He'd finished university, and he rang me up and said, Dad, I've got a big problem. My credit rating's shot to pieces. So no one will rent me an apartment. I said, why? He said, I'll send you the paperwork. He said, it's crazy. And it was unpaid gas bills for the old rectory at Appleby Magna, which had been owned by HS2 since 2015. And it was bills for gas bills for 2020, 2021 and 2022. And it was £7,500 worth of gas bills. So I got onto British Gas, and they basically admitted to me that HS2 had told them to put them onto the credit rating as unpaid of Mr. A.J. Bridgen, Andrew James Bridgen. But my son is Alexander James Bridgen, and they put him on his credit rating.
Unbelievable.
And
Well,
that is
my late
5 years. They were bills for 5 years after I'd sold them the property.
my late mother and myself shared an initial, and there were only two L opics in the world, and there were only two. I better not go into too much detail because I'm giving too much information away. But there aren't many opics around, and there were some interesting aspects to that as well. Having said that, we have to stop this mutual counselling session because Pooch has got a question for you. Pooch.
Andrew, hi. I'm Pooch, the co-owner of the channel and producer. I know this is pretty old ground, raking over it, but I just wanted to say, as a kind of a lay person and everyday man in the street, thank you for what you did during COVID. Thank you for standing up for everybody. I was with you from day one. I didn't lock down. I went out all the time. I got arrested twice for A, not wearing a mask, B, going to the protests in Trafalgar Square. It was absolutely horrendous. Anyone with any sense could see that it was a massive, great scam, a big con trick, and you saw through it, and they sought to punish you for that, and they probably still are doing so. But I didn't want to interrupt this other than say I've always wanted the opportunity to say thank you for what you did.
Oh, that's really good of you. I think that's that people are realising now in increasing numbers what went on during COVID, and it was a precursor, wasn't it, to horrors to come. The Conservative Party, the Conservative government told me they were going to cover it up for 20 years before they expelled me. I don't think they're going to get 20 years. I think too many people have woken up to what's going on, and I don't think they can pull that trick again, hopefully.
Yeah, I have to say a second, Pooch's emotion. You and I have talked about this offline. The third, and I admit it, I freely admit it, I had 3 jabs because I thought they'd be harmless. I didn't think they'd do me any good, but I thought they'd be harmless. I was so wrong. That third jab really messed me up. Really.
Yeah, the booster wasn't a booster, Lembit. It was actually an IQ test.
Okay, well, I failed that then very badly. I'll give you that one. It's awful.
But you're fortunate. There's a lot of placebo about, so you've just got to hope you were lucky.
Richard, I don't think I was. Richard Phillips said, "Well said, Pooch." By the way, and Pooch is back.
Yeah, I'm back. Just to say that also, I don't bear any kind of ill will to people who fell for it. I don't think I'm clever or anything like that. I think I probably just got lucky with it. I've never trusted the establishment. I mean, I think many people's eyes were opened after the Brexit referendum. Yeah, we had a vote, and okay, I voted to leave. But had it gone Remain's way, I'd have said, okay, fair enough. I wouldn't have then, if I were an MP, tried to change the democratic vote. And it's at that point that I think a lot of us woke up and thought, blimey, this is a bit odd. So, you know, when they're saying that the science was settled, you have to take this jab. They asked me, I said, oh, what are the long-term, what's the long-term data on it? Well, there isn't any. Well, I'm not taking it then. What's in it? Well, we can't tell you that. Well, I'm not taking it then. So yeah, Lembit, many people took a couple of jabs. They took the booster. It was a concerted effort and it was a campaign. But as I said, I've got mates of mine who feel really bad that they fell for it, but it doesn't matter. As long as we're awake now.
The horror for me was that when I wanted to stop them jabbing the under 6s down to babies of 6 months, I knew the establishment had come for me. I knew I could stop it with the science, but I needed some cover. I needed some people to stand with me so they couldn't exact their revenge on me. And the number of senior colleagues who knew, I mean, one of them told me he'd actually had 2 Pfizer shots and suffered 2 heart attacks, and he knew what it was, and he still wouldn't stand up to protect the children. And that was someone I really respected, and there was plenty of that, and they knew. And that's when I lost complete trust in our politics. I mean, as to speak in the chamber of the Council of Commons, you know, supposedly every elected assembly you're supposed to speak without fear or favour. Well, I can tell you there's a lot of fear and a lot of favour in that chamber of the House of Commons, and it's not serving the people.
Well, thank you for that. That's all I wanted to say. And Lembit doing a great job. And Andrew, so nice to speak to you. And again, thank you so much. Huge respect. Yes. And I know our audience. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to set up this channel with Mike. You know, free speech. We're getting told what to think, what to do. I take the bloody dogs for a walk and there's a sign saying, oh, the oak processionary moths here. There's don't walk there, don't do this, do that, do this, don't stare, drink water, rehydrate. We've had enough of it. We've absolutely had enough of it. And it's people like you and Lembit as well in the public eye who are speaking for those of us who don't have a voice. So once again, thank you very much.
A Mutual Appreciation Society. Pooch is giving us free speech. So right back at you there, Pooch. And I have to say, you're being generous. I feel like a fool for having taken those jabs. I'd had whatever it was. I would call it flu. And then I put that muck in my body and I paid the price.
Yeah,
well, I had to. And I remember I actually flew out. I was in Washington. I think it was December 2021. And I met with Senator Ron Johnson on the Hill. I'll tell you what, the Senator's office's suites are a lot nicer than MP suites in Parliament. And as I walked into his office, the first thing he said to me is, "Andrew, you're a clever guy. Why did you put that poison in your veins?"
That's exactly how I feel. I feel exactly the same.
Well, I had, I'm kind of by trade concert promoter. I was putting stuff on at Carnegie Hall in New York, had an office there. And I was told that I needed to get injected so that I could fly over to New York. I mean, I was going every week, every other week. And well, I think it's one great thing that I'm scared of needles. So regardless, I wouldn't have had the injection anyway. But a lot of us lost a lot of money and no one cares about that. A lot of us lost a heck of a lot of money, and anyone who's a company director received absolutely zero money, zero compensation. And but I suppose, as long as the truth comes out, and as long as you keep telling people.
MPs were locked down in the constituencies just like everyone else, and we were getting a lot of propaganda. And what I'll tell you is that the lockdowns, North West Leicestershire by 2019, I'd been the MP for 9 years, and we'd had control of the council for 12. We'd converted that from the poorest seat in Leicestershire to the richest and the happiest place to live in the Midlands. And the suicide rate during lockdown was higher in a month than it normally was in a year. And I wrote to the government and said, "We can't carry on like this. My people are killing themselves. This is what you're doing to them for probably nothing." And they wrote back to me and said there was no link, absolutely no link between lockdowns and suicides. Well, I mean, if it wasn't the happiest place to live in the Midlands, what was it like in the other places? That's as big a lie as safe and effective.
I truly, deeply resent the fact, truly, madly, deeply resent the fact that despite, like you, having been an MP, I was foolish enough to believe the state.
It was really good propaganda, wasn't it? And, nobody wants to talk about NG163. And, we've got I've been working with the Dimmock family for over 3.5 years to get an inquest into Derek Dimmock's death at the Trinity Hospice Trust in London, where he went in with gout in 2020, and they put him on midazolam and morphine, and he was dead the next morning. And had the family not intervened, he would have been put down as that was the treatment for COVID. He hadn't got COVID, but he died breathless, and he would have been put down as COVID. And those vulnerable elderly, Lembit, it's a brilliant crime because they had COVID put on their death certificate, they died breathless, but they were given a respiratory suppressant, so that's what will happen to you. No one survived. Then there was no autopsy because they were COVID, and also their bodies were cremated in 24 hours, so the evidence was gone. I mean, if you wanted to write that in a Sherlock Holmes novel, that would be, seen as a plausible storyline.
Well, they'd have said probably it's too much. They'd have said it's too much. My mother passed away during the whole COVID thing. She didn't die of COVID. But I remember one curious thing. Although the hospital I respect a lot, they said, "Oh, well, she's going to die anyway, so you can see as much as you want." And suddenly all the rules changed. It's like, hang on.
I spoke to a Muslim family, spoke to me, and obviously it's their tradition. They have to bury the body within 24 hours. I think it was the grandfather who was very, very feeble and very weak. He fell down the stairs and broke a lot of bones and died. And the doctor would not release the body in 24 hours unless they allowed COVID to put on the death certificate, and they did to get the body.
We rather drifted off from what I was wanting to talk with you about, but then Pooch is to blame. It's
Well,
Pooch's fault.
he's the co-owner, so he's the co-owner.
In that case, let me change that. Pooch says to praise, to be praised. Okay, Pooch, good job there. I think I've mentioned it once, but I think I got away with it. We've got one clip to play with you. Play with you. That sounds wrong, but it's technically grammatically correct. Well, no, we're going to play it with you, and then you can comment on it. And this is something that we've discovered. You're good at exposing conspiracies. See if you can figure out the missing word. Can we play the start?
So I've been asked what hair gel I use. Now, you may or may not know that for very high-level government secrets, there's a rule that the information is so sensitive that it can't be released for 30 years. So I'm going to have to come back to this one in some time. Or I could just say that the hair gel I use is...
What do you make of that, Cliff? AI or not AI? I can't tell.
I think that's
it's
AI,
so superficial,
isn't it?
it could be real.
Yeah, well, nothing would surprise me. I mean, it is a pantomime. It would be pretty good product placement. But I mean, if you were advertising, would you employ Keir Starmer, the most unpopular prime minister, and give him money to promote any product? I think it'd be the kiss of death. It's a kiss of death for the Labour Party, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm a dapper Dan man myself. That's a line from "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?"
I'm au naturel. I don't use any hair gel.
Nor do I. You can see, and I don't dye it. It's really this color. No, honestly, Andrew, it is.
I don't dye mine either.
I know, that's what depresses me. it's good to see.
I'm not that vain.
But I'm in Washington and you're not. Yeah,
I know.
You weren't there, man.
I've been to Washington plenty of times. It's sticky. I've spoken on Capitol Hill. The lunchtime dining room of the Republican congressman. At no notice, they made me stand up and give them a 10-minute speech, but no notice.
Right, you win on points.
And the congressman who was sponsoring me, when I stood down, he said, "Good speech." I said, "No, it was terrible." I said, "They weren't paying attention. They had their eyes down. They were writing. I've lost the audience." He says, "No." He says, "They were writing down your jokes."
I promise you, I'll never do that.
Oh, you know that imitation is the highest form of flattery, isn't it? I mean, it is. I mean, it is.
There was a horse. A very I can't tell you. It's actually a watershed joke, but I'll call you after the show. It's good to see you. That is Andrew Bridgen. Thank you very much indeed. And do please, if you like Andrew, and if you like what we're doing, then do like and subscribe to UK Live. We're here to give space to wonderful people like Andrew, and of course Pooch. And he's right. Pooch has given us the space to give you the free speech that's totally missing on what's left of the mainstream media. We're going to carry on doing that. And just one last word. If they ever try to jab me against my will again, then I'm with the almost overwhelming majority of people who have just responded, including Pigeon Peas there, who felt that was a brilliant conversation. And Andrew is fantastic, says Meow Moog. So I totally agree with that. And I salute Pooch for having the courage of his convictions. And I damn myself for being so careless with my body that I let the state put poison in it, not once, not twice, but 3 times. There's something almost biblical about that. Now, staying on the question of potentially provocative subjects, what do you make of pride marches? In a moment, I'm going to ask a clip to be played, but before that, let me set the scene. London has a whole month of pride because it's considered such an important subject that for a 12th of the year, we have to have parades and demonstrations and all these presumably quite costly rainbow posters and preachy statements from Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, about how great it is to have pride. But what are the consequences of it? To what extent does pride actually leave a mess rather than fixing one? Joining me now is Matthew Holbert, TV and radio commentator. Matthew, great to see you. Where are you? You're in the kitchen.
I'm in the kitchen here in my flat in Hinckley in Leicestershire, and it's good to see you, Lemmy. You won't remember this, I'm sure, but many years ago, you actually drove me somewhere in part of London after we'd been at a Lib Dem gathering of a mutual friend of mine. But there's no reason you should remember that, but I remember it.
No, I do remember it because you never paid for the petrol.
That sounds like me.
Okay, we're not going any further until you send me £5. Well, it's my pleasure to have done that. And that was, by the way, I remember the car. I do remember the lift because it was a Vauxhall Cavalier 1.7 diesel, which I talked to you about how great it was. 384,000 miles on the clock it was, and not out. And that's what I remember. And I remember that because it was before the all those stupid charges. Congestion charge and all that other stuff. That's how long ago it was. Are you still in the Lib Dems?
I'm still in the Lib Dems. I'm just an ordinary member now. I ceased being a councillor a while ago, and I spend my time now outside of work doing a lot of this stuff and just giving my views. And my views might be different to your views and those of your viewers and listeners, but I think it's important to engage on platforms like this, even if we disagree.
I think we can both agree that if you have a different view to me, then you're wrong. I think that's presumably okay. Let's see if we agree on this, though. The Pride marches, which seem to become ever more explicit. Maybe we can show a clip of one in a minute. The question I've got to ask is, what's their purpose? Do they do more harm than good? Do you have that clip? Let's see if the team can play the clip. Can the gallery have a go? That's enough. That's enough. Was that you in the front row there, Matthew?
It absolutely wasn't. And although I've been to Pride many times, not London Pride, but obviously Prides take place all over the country. So I've been to Birmingham's and Leicester's, and just the other week, the one in King's Heath, and it was renamed Queen's Heath Pride for Pride Day. But you'll never see me sans shirt because I don't think anyone needs to see that, Lendit.
But what about those people? I salute you for that. I even wear a T-shirt on beaches these days, so not to frighten other people's children. But what do you make of hundreds or perhaps thousands, or in that case of men, almost naked, in a situation that I would never dream of letting my children see in the middle of a city, because in my view, that was age inappropriate?
Well, look, I mean, as I say, you wouldn't see me like that, but I think I'll just push back a little bit to you, Lembit, because I mean, it's funny. It's interesting that you mention, being on a beach. I mean, that's just the kind of thing you'd see on many beaches across the land and in much sunnier climes. Nothing worse than that. And so, I think we can be a little bit pious and start kind of pearl clutching about things like this. But that was one small group of people at London Pride. Lots of pictures that I saw from London Pride were fully dressed people celebrating LGBT plus lives. Lots of colour, lots of music. A really fun time. So, I mean, look, that is a particular clip that is being used to have a bit of a go at Pride, and I resent that a little bit, to be honest.
Okay, it's good. We're going to have an argument then, because I'll tell you this. I don't give tuppence about people's sexual orientation. It doesn't affect me. It'd be like me arguing with you on whether Bellingham's a good footballer or not. I don't really care that much. I'll have a chat with you about it, but in the same way I might talk to you about the weather. My issue is you go into London, and for at least a 12th of the year, and this happens in other cities too, like Manchester and Brighton, and you've got the sexual identity politics rammed down your throat. And if my children were to say to me, Daddy, what's all that about? I don't want to have that conversation. They're 9, they're 5. Why is it that we have promoted sexual agenda politics in what's meant to be an enlightened country where I don't think there is much discrimination towards people who are gay, for example, anymore? Why have we promoted it to the point where people like me as parents are worried about confusing the kids?
Well, you say there's not much discrimination anymore, but I was doom scrolling. It's always not a good thing to be doing, is it, these days? But I was doom scrolling the other day, and as well as the wonderful, vibrant, colourful pictures from London Pride, there was appearing on my algorithm, no doubt at the best of Elon Musk, lots of people saying the most vile things about LGBT plus people. So I'm afraid discrimination does still exist. And as far as I see it, those people who were saying those things were proving exactly why we need pride, exactly why it's important.
But do we actually provoke that reaction even more by having pride? By the way, there is one point you make me realise. Because I don't really care about that kind of discrimination myself, I tend to assume other people don't, and that's a fair point, Matthew. If you're in the Lib Dems, for example, I just don't think there's any discrimination there. There's a huge proportion of people who I think have been drawn into politics because of the discrimination they experience. So maybe I've lived in a slightly cosseted environment where I don't hang around with people who are prejudiced. But isn't there a possibility that those people who are will be further provoked by what they see on the news and what they see when they walk around London?
And I guess so, and people can have lots of different reaction to things. But as I say, I think we need to keep things in context. That was one group of people marching in the Pride March, and I think I probably would have preferred if they were kind of wearing a bit more than they were in that clip. But maybe that just makes me a bit of a prude. But the vast majority of the march, from what I've seen, wasn't like that. And I think it would have been a perfectly safe place to take your children. And you talk about not wanting to take the children of 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm sure I knew by the time I was at the very least kind of 12, 13, that I was attracted to other guys and not the girls. And so I think you do know from quite a young age. And so I think actually being able to go on a march that is all about vibrancy and difference is good. I'd have no problem. I'd take my nephews and nieces. I'd have no problem with that.
Okay, but I wouldn't do it because it's not relevant to my children. They think about Peppa Pig. They think about going to a world of adventure where they can see animals. They can perhaps go on roller coasters or go swimming or go to kids clubs. They don't talk about sexual orientation, apart from the fact that my 5-year-old does say that when she grows up, she's going to marry her best friend, Alex. And that's it. That's as far as it goes. My worry is, I want to go into something else, an actual literal problem of mess with these demonstrations, but my worry is that we're messing with people's minds when it's not appropriate. Or to make it really simple, Matthew, you and I are both in the same party, loads and loads of gay people in the Lib Dems, and I like to think that at least in the Lib Dems there was no discrimination. That was a little kind of microcosm of society, which on this point at least was good. But the problem I got is that my kids aren't interested, and I don't want them to become interested in something, because for the overwhelming majority of people, the overwhelming majority, they know who they are, they know what they are, they don't need to have a march to tell them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so, but I also think that, again, discrimination does exist, and thankfully, for gay people, I think there is less and less discrimination, and that is obviously fantastic. That shows how far we've come as a society. I think for other parts of the LGBT plus community, especially in regards to trans people and non-binary folks, etc., discrimination is daily and is in the media and is on social media and is on the street. And again, that's another reason why I think we need pride. But I mean, I guess it's then up for parents to decide whether or not they want to take their children to such an event.
All right. Well, I think you and I probably disagree, but we've said it twice now, so we won't do it a third time. I am therefore going to challenge you. I think we can find a point of agreement, I hope, because pride causes a mess. Have a look at this. I think we got a clip. Look at it. Look at it. Right. They're all busy hugging each other instead of picking up the mess. If you go to Bermuda, you get kids just literally walking around, picking up dirt and rubbish. There's almost nothing there. How can anyone, including you, young man, justify that disgraceful mess? The Countryside Alliance always leaves the fields they use for their demonstrations in better state than they found them. Not so the Pride Brigade.
Well, I mean, look, that wasn't a good thing.
You should be ashamed. Hang your head in shame.
Well, I wasn't there. I'd like to think I always pick up after myself. But yeah, I mean, that didn't look good, did it? But I mean, all I'd say, and this isn't a defence at all because it's not good, but I think you go to any kind of mass event where there's lots and lots of people, and sadly a lot of mess gets left behind. It shouldn't, but it does, and quite often it's because, to be honest with you, Lembit, on a very practical level, there's often not enough bins, and so people leave their rubbish on the floor. They shouldn't, but they do.
Jim R. Ford, by the way, says, "Come on, Lembit. This is true of any event. You people are ganging up against me now. Is he your friend? Is that your pseudonym, Jim R. Ford?" No, I'm right. You're wrong. The thing is that I know it's a cheap shot because it's true. When you go to demonstrations, when you go to concerts, the place can be an absolute pigsty. If you go to Glastonbury, I know the MP for the area, and I've been honoured to be there before, during, and after Glastonbury events. The place is an absolute war zone of mess. If you ever want a free tent, that's the place to go. But at the same time, don't we have some kind of, if you're trying to, like, back to what you said, if these marches are meant to be changing public opinion, the last thing you want to do is turn public opinion against you by leaving the centre of London like a pigsty.
I absolutely agree, and maybe this is a question for Sadiq Khan or for the local councils down there as to whether they're on such an occasion providing enough facilities for people to be able to put their rubbish in an actual place where it can then be collected. I mean, people obviously, especially no doubt it was very hot over the weekend. People are needing to keep hydrated, etc., and buy drinks, etc. And I guess, what do you do if all the bins are rammed full? It's a bit difficult.
Yeah, I can't really find any other way to have a go at you on that subject. So let's move on to one other thing. I'm going to indulge myself a little bit. The whole question of gender and identity politics, it interests me because the party that I was in and you are in is obsessed with it, actually. They spend a lot of time talking about it. I touched on it before, but let me ask you this explicitly. Is there a possibility that it just occupies too central a position in the mindsets of politicians, or at least the current politicians? 1 in 8 Labour MPs claim to be not straight. So in my view, that's out of proportion with the general public. And there are those who then feel disenfranchised or upset or worried, as I admit I do as a parent, because it gives children the impression that this is a bigger thing than it is. And and it also makes children feel they have to have a position on it.
I mean, I just don't agree with that, to be honest with you. I think, there are gay children. There will always be, because it's a perfectly natural thing to be. And all I can tell you is that, I knew that I was gay from about the age of 12 or 13, despite the fact that, I'd spent the past 12, 13 years on TV, etc., watching, straight relationships and straight relationships being portrayed at the cinema and all the rest of it. That didn't change me from being what I was, which was a gay guy. So, I mean, I think children know who and what they are, and having an event that says to them, if you're part of this community, if you're starting to realise that, as I did at a young age, then you have nothing to fear. You can live a good, positive life. You can have wonderful relationship. You can get married. You can do all of these things. And there might be some people who are prejudiced against you, but actually they're the ones in the wrong. They're the ones with the problem. There's nothing wrong with you. I think having an event that says that is a good thing. So I'm afraid, Lembit, we'll just have to disagree. I think pride is a very good thing.
There is one reason I think you're lying about your sexual orientation, by the way. I'll tell you what it is. No gay man I know would store his bread in such a messy way in the kitchen. Look at it. Hopeless. Even I wouldn't do that.
What's wrong with it? It's over my shoulder there.
It's sitting on top of stuff. And you also missed an opportunity. You could have had a loaf of pride. But you didn't choose to have it, did you?
Do you know, that is so true? I can't believe that I missed that. But yeah, I once did a telly thing, and there was some Weetabix there, and this caused quite a meme. People they weren't commenting on the argument that I'd made on that occasion. All they were talking about was the box of Weetabix over my shoulder.
You will be mocked for how you keep your bread. Good to see you, though, and do make sure you send me the 5K. I'll give you a lift anytime you want. Always a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah.
That is a man who comes from my old party, actually. And Matthew and I may agree to disagree, but isn't that what Pooch was talking about earlier on, if you were watching? The beauty of free speech. Coming up after the news, we're going to be speaking to somebody else who loves free speech. And before that, let's find out what's going on in the news world.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. England pulled off a chaotic 3-2 thriller against Mexico in the World Cup last 16. 10 men, Bellingham brace, Kane penalty, Azteca drama. We're through to face Norway because of course we turn up when it matters least predictably. Expect half the country working from home tomorrow with 5 a.m. pub licences and near 30 degrees Celsius heat. Speaking of which, welcome to heatwave number 3 of the summer. Nothing says "we're fine" like sweating through your commute on the Northern Line while drinking a hot coffee. Police leadership, a total mess of nepotism and cronyism, says a review, shocking no one. Farage's dodgy crypto mate is still handing out reform cards, Kate's doing 3 peaks for charity, and Starmer's getting NATO side-eye. Same chaos, different day. God save the king, and pass the ice lollies. Laters, Tigers.
Well, there we go. The football, I'm tempted to talk about, but you'll have all of that to enjoy after 12. And so while I avidly watched the programme, Mark Littlewood has so much to tell you, and he's so much more informed about the subject than me. I shall resist the temptation. Safe to say, it's a must-watch today, however tired you are. I'm sure he'll also be asking, did you pull a sickie today? I'm not sure Britain's working too hard today. Mexico might not be either. But let's go on to another subject. Somebody else who's not pulled a sickie, but has pulled a hissy fit, is Lisa Nandy, government minister, who, amongst other things, has decided she's not going to be on X because she doesn't like it and she doesn't want her team to be on X. All kinds of other things which, in my personal humble opinion, are more to do with being an adolescent than being a senior government minister. But don't take my word for it. Have a look for yourself. If you actually, I'm just having a look at it now, but if you actually have a look at the things that Lisa Nandy has said, they add up to somebody who seems to be a little bit too thin-skinned for that kind of work. Sean Walsh is quite the opposite. He's thick-skinned and very well informed. Sean, good to see you.
How do you know?
Oh, there you go.
Don't know that yet. Don't know that
Somebody
yet.
needs a hug.
I went 10 rounds. I went 10 rounds with Kelvin MacKenzie last week, so it's a pleasure to talk to you, Lembit.
Kelvin, he and I did. We actually did the show last week. Many years ago, I did a sport relief thing with him, and he managed to cause a so-called comedian called Hardeep Singh Kohli to walk off the set by accusing him of being worse than Hitler. And then whenever he was convinced to come back, Kelvin sealed the deal by pointing at him and saying, what I can't forgive is the invasion of Poland. So I know what Kelvin's capable of.
He just told me I wasn't good looking enough to be on his show.
Well,
and
that's why you're on with me.
That's probably what he'd say. That was the first thing he said to me. I thought, well, okay, it was great fun though. It was good fun. We had a good back and forth. But Lisa Nandy, yes.
On Friday, I was with an American who said at the end of the show, "You're not as horrible as I thought you were," and that was meant to be a compliment. Now, Lisa and Andy would have walked off. Lisa and Andy would have walked out of the studio in that situation.
She would,
but
she
what's
would
up
have
with Lisa? What's wrong with her?
I was talking to the comedian and friend of mine. He name dropped straight away, Simon Evans, the other day about the nature of laughter and whether laughter is the mark, as Aquinas said, of reasonable and rational people, and we both agreed that it was. The thing about the higher echelons of the Labour Party is that they are humourless. They do not take pleasure in anything, and except possibly the cancellation of other people's pleasures. So for people like Lisa Nandy, and now I see Lucy Powell has chipped in, what social space in general ought to be is just a list of government-approved information propositions, and it shouldn't be a fun place to have a bit of knockabout. So she's flounced off, so we can have some fun with that because we're talking about it. But in a sense, part of being English and part of being British is that we don't take any notice when people flounce off. We just sit patiently and wait for them to flounce back again, or to come back quietly again. And I suspect she'll be back on X because that's what normally happens. But the more sinister point, I think, is that at the moment we are, and we can't forget this, we are basically in the middle of a sort of coup. Lisa Nandy is a senior acolyte in this weird Burnham cult. And what Burnham is trying to do is trying to deflect at all costs the fact that he's going to come in and try and do stuff with no legitimate authority to do it unless he calls a general election, which he won't because he's too scared to do that. And it is in places like X that he will be found out and that this will be discussed. So there are 2 points about Lisa Nandy. First of all, she doesn't want to hear opinions that are different from her own. And second, I suspect they are rolling the pitch to have a go at X in the future and to try and undermine it in the future, because what she calls misinformation, the rest of us can call speculation and knockabout fun. And they just don't like it because often the truth emerges from all of that and they don't like the truth.
It's true. In the past, I used to think that it was the right, the conservative side, that didn't have a sense of humour. Increasingly, I feel that maybe it's specific to the current administration, but I feel there's a real problem, there's a real sense of humour breakdown with the current team. By the way, Martin MD says, great guests today. That should make up for how you were treated last week by Kelvin MacKenzie. And Barbara Won, I have to read this, says, I like Lembert's interviewing style. Barbara, I like your viewing style. It's a competition of generosity you've wandered into, Sean, here. Donny Lockyer says Kelvin could start a fight in an empty bar. That's probably true as well. But
I thought it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. It was great fun. I said to him, "You're talking to me as if I'm some cub reporter who's late filing their copy," and he quite liked that. So
he also thought of that as a compliment. Let's have a look at that Lisa Nandy exchange again. It's quite small, so I will read it out if you can get it up onto the screen. For those who don't know, Lisa Nandy MP, proud Wiganer, Labour MP for Wigan, Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport. That's what she says. Lisa Nandy MP, and I quote her, I've decided to leave this platform, and my department will too. A platform originally designed for free speech and expression now favours abuse and misinformation over meaningful debate. It isn't healthy for our democracy or our communities, and I don't want to support it. And then there's all a bit about how you can follow Lisa Nandy. Now, I think that's a bit soft.
Yeah, it is. It's pathetic. It's utterly pathetic. And by the way, did her department have any say in this, or has she just taken them with her? It reminds me of, there's always a Seinfeld episode, Lembit. I don't know if you're a Seinfeld fan, but there's one episode
big fan.
That the hapless and pathetic George Costanza on a Friday afternoon decides to quit his job, histrionically and performatively, and flounces out of the room, and then spends the rest of the weekend wondering how he can get back, we can get it back again. So decides just to turn up on the Monday as if nothing's happened. I suspect that Lisa Nandy and the rest of them will be back on X. And if they're not, well, in a way, who cares? I don't think there's ever been a party in the history of parties which has collapsed because Lisa Nandy has walked out of it. I think I think people on X, providing the government leaves us alone, people on X can continue to have a good time. And this whole idea, I see Lucy Powell's chipped in and said that X is toxic, which is kind of true in the sense that to certain people, good stuff is toxic, so they don't like it. I mean, holy water is toxic for demons, and laughter is toxic for the higher echelons of the Labour nomenclature, it seems.
Yes,
but she'll be back. She'll be saying to herself, maybe I forgot to turn the oven off over at X. I'll just pop back in and just check everything's all right there. They'll be back. They always are.
I'm just waiting for them to start talking about toxic exuality or something like that, because it's just everything has to be preachy.
Well,
that's the point.
Can I just make a point about this misinformation thing as well? This horrible Pravda word that they keep using. By misinformation, I mean, I would say speculation is as good a word as misinformation. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. And I would take this from people like Lisa Nandy and Lucy Powell, if this government actually took its own information and its own commission reports seriously. So, for example, the Cass report was an official document in all but name, wasn't it? They're ignoring that to carry on an experiment on young children, which I think is evil and egregious in the extreme.
That's about gender identity and so forth.
Yeah, it is, but it's an illustration of how some reports and some information they're prepared to work with, and some they would run away from. So don't trust this government as having any faith in official stats and official propositions and in official reports, because they do so only expediently. I don't blame them for that necessarily. I think that's what governments do, but let's be alert to what they're up to. Likewise, the Supreme Court judgment on biological sex. Richard Phillipson monkeyed around with that for a year. So
I do blame them for this. I was an idiot, and certainly whenever they say that they know better than the courts on what a man is and what a woman is, it beggars belief in a sense, because the judiciary and the legislature, in other words, the courts and parliament, meant to be two separate things. And everybody knows that there's a kind of massive politicization going on there.
Sure.
Just in terms of the thin-skinnedness of people like Lisa Nandy, if I got upset by every little thing that people ever tell me on X, I'd be in continuous counseling, or worse. I'm here in the United States at the moment, in Washington, D.C., and one of the reasons I like coming to America is the First Amendment, because although it's not perfectly applied, it's about free speech. It's about being able to say what you want, even if it's offensive. And it's very hard to silence people. Now, I don't think in Britain we've got free speech anymore. And when Lisa Nandy takes offence, a woman who's earning over £100,000 a year to try to work for us, and she takes offence with the people she works for, kick up. I just think it's pathetic. I actually think it's pathetic. I don't think she's up to the job.
No, you're right. You're talking about a person who complains about misinformation and hate, who thinks that a man can become a woman just by some act of will, and despises / hates those people who disagree with him. It's, none of us should take any lessons in honesty from any of this lot. But, when it comes to laughter and humour, remember for the last 2 years, we've basically had an algorithm as Prime Minister. I don't think I've ever seen Keir Starmer laugh. So,
that's an insult. That's actually an insult to algorithms.
It is a bit. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. But to be fair to Starmer, at least he didn't flounce off X. I think he was collecting community notes. It was community noted every single day, wasn't it? So either he's got a humiliation fetish, which is possible, or he wasn't reading the fact that he was community noted, or he just didn't care, in which case he's shameless. But I was speaking to a friend yesterday. I have never been community noted on X, and I'm a little bit ashamed of that.
Or he didn't notice.
Or he didn't notice. Well, yeah.
I reckon sometime late in July he'll go home and he'll see Andy Burnham. What are you doing at my house? Haven't you been paying attention, Keir? That's the problem.
Do you think
Yeah,
Lisa
quite.
Nan? Go on.
Quite. I mean, the perfect end to that story would have been, wouldn't it, if Keir Starmer had stood against Andy Burnham and won, and Burnham had lost for the third time. But there you go. My take on the Andy Burnham thing for Country Squire magazine was that it was like, do you know that film Kind Hearts and Coronets?
Yeah.
Where the Dennis Price character schemes his way to the baronetcy, but in the final analysis gets upended by some unnecessary act of personal vanity. I was thinking that might happen with Burnham, but alas, it doesn't. It looks like he might actually pick up the keys to the office, doesn't it?
No, but
At least Burnham can fake a sense of humour, I guess.
I like your subtle and yet robust product placement there of Country Squire magazine. You've got to tell us what's in it. What is Country Squire magazine? Why should such a bourgeois magazine be allowed in socialist Britain?
Okay, the late philosopher and writer Roger Scruton managed to get a column on the New Statesman, which was supposedly about wine criticism. And of course, the New Statesman is notoriously left-wing, and Roger very famously wasn't particularly left-wing. And he managed, under the guise of wine criticism, to smuggle in all sorts of conservative and right-wing orthodoxies under the noses of the editors of New Statesman. Country Squire is a little bit like that. We do articles about the country, but we are eclectic, and we do articles about anything providing it's kind of vaguely reactionary, vaguely in favour of tradition, pro-religion, and against the kind of metropolitan London orthodoxy. Hence Country Squire. Most of the writers aren't based in SW1 and very rarely go there. So we're kind of a subversive right-wing platform. And we have some great people working for us. And a very eccentric editor who's in a permanent fight with prominent people. So do check us out, please.
As every good editor should be. Sean,
Yeah.
always good to see you. I shall tell Kelvin MacKenzie to turn up the heat for next time. Until you've had enough. Until you've had enough.
Bring it on.
He's a great character, Kelvin. As is
He
Sean
was.
Moss. He was. You know, he's still around, I think. I think he survived the weekend.
Thank you.
That is great. That is Sean Moss and Country Squire magazine. Give it a look. You might be pleasantly surprised and learn something about the countryside you didn't know. Well, our time is almost up. Before we go any further, though, a couple of people praising us for dealing with our tech problems. I still don't know what happened at the beginning, but the secret of live broadcasting is to stay on point. And somebody who never misses a trick is Mark Littlewood, who will be full of beans this morning, but is he full of beer? Are you still in the pub?
Beans and beer, Lembit. What a match. How was it for you in the United States of America? One of the very best World Cup matches of all time, and England have made it through. You watched every minute, I gather.
I missed the first 10 minutes, I think. So I'm glad for the late start because I was meant to be having a proper meeting. And then there was a Mexican in the meeting. He said, I must go downstairs because I've got to watch the match. I'll tell you where I was watching it. Name drop now. The Waldorf Astoria in Washington, D.C. A rather posh place, which isn't prone to show soccer. And they weren't too keen. We said, it's football. And there were about 15 Brits. And there was one single Mexican.
Did it all kick off then, Lembit? Did it kick off?
It did, like this.
It kicked off at the Waldorf Astoria. You've buried the lead here. You've been on for 2 hours. This is breaking news, mate.
I was soberly watching as it kicked off. I couldn't afford to kick off the way you're saying in the Waldorf Astoria. But the idea of kicking off was when Bellingham scored the first goal, it was more like, well done, that man. But the Mexican was more intense. He used words which I saw in a Mexican film once, which I know to be profane, and I can't repeat. And
I'm not going to ask you what kind of Mexican film that was. The mind boggles.
It was actually a film about a woman called Mendoza. It was actually a series about drug running. And they kept using one particular word beginning in P. And they kept shouting it, assuming the people in the Waldorf Astoria didn't
speak Spanish.
Didn't know it. But at the end, and that was very tense, and at the very end, do you know what the Brits did? We did like this. We all applauded us like this.
Well, that's pretty
And
good.
the Mexican walked out. He walked out. What do you think? It was a good game? Do you think that having a person sent off was a good move?
I mean, I'm talking about the thrills and spills, right?
Oh,
I mean, you obviously don't want Kwanzaa to make an error, but you know, any match with 5 goals, 1 sending off, 2 penalty kicks, you know, ends 3-2. It's only the third competitive match that Mexico have ever lost in their history in that stadium. Extraordinary and good. I mean, it sounds like it was potentially even feistier at the Waldorf Astoria than it was on the streets of Mexico City. The good news is the Mexican fans and the England fans got along like a house on fire, Lembit. So I see top football journalists are already saying that the match was so exciting that we should invite Mexico for a friendly at Wembley. But I'm assuming that productivity in the UK has collapsed today, right? Here in Spain, it was 3 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the morning to watch the game. So I haven't slept at all. And in the UK, especially if you were down the pub, I'm guessing you threw a sickie. Just pretend you have the voice of Harry Kane, the funniest football interview I've ever seen. He had completely lost his voice when he was interviewed by the BBC at the end because he was belting out Wonderwall with all the fans couldn't speak. And you've got this quirky story about Jordan Henderson, who didn't feature for a single second of the match, nevertheless managed to get booked and break his wrist. So he is likely out for the tournament. Quite extraordinary. He fell over an advertising hoarding during the celebrations and has broken his wrist, the poor bloke. He did get involved in the game a bit earlier and got booked. But there you go. So Henderson was sort of semi-involved. But, fantastic match. Brilliant for England to get through. Next
does that mean
Norway.
So they've got a Weatherspoons at the happy hour in the Azteca Stadium just for him? Because I can't understand any other reason.
Yeah, sounds like it. Sounds like it.
So what's in your show? What are you covering today? I can guess.
Well, we're obviously going to be dissecting the England game, but there's been a ton of other football as well over the weekend, obviously. And Norway knocked out Brazil last night. Erling Haaland got a brace. They beat Brazilians 2-1. They were the underdogs in that match, and they face England next at the slightly more sociable time of 10 p.m. on Saturday night. So should be another good series of takings for the hospitality industry. Were we to progress beyond that, future kickoffs in British summertime are at 8 p.m. So there'll be no more having to get up in the middle of the night to watch the match, but it was well worth it every single second. I've got some great guests on, including the chief science correspondent of The Times. He's a scientist rather than a football fan, but he tried to work out how bad the altitude at the Aztec Stadium, 7,000 feet up, was going to be. So I'm going to ask about his findings and whether they in any way informed the England strategy to win that match. We'll also be hearing from a fellow Southampton fan of mine on his takes so far, and whether England should have used any subtle Saints spying techniques. And we got an Arsenal fan on the show, Paul Scangelli, and I think Arsenal are the key to England winning this tournament. The Arsenal players in the England team, Rice, Saka, Madueke, they are going to be absolutely key and critical if England are actually going to win the World Cup for the first time in my lifetime. So I want to get his take on them. And we'll be looking forward to tonight's games, a highly controversial one. USA versus Belgium. The Americans have had their best player reinstated, apparently following a political intervention by Donald Trump, and FIFA using Article 27, which is now going to become even more controversial than Article 50 was during the Brexit negotiations. UEFA, the European Federation, have gone nuts. The Belgian Football Association have gone nuts. This is a big, big controversy that a player who was sent off in a previous match is merely going to serve a suspended sentence. So that has tilted the odds against Belgium, and I suspect most of the football world will now be cheering on Belgium against the USA, Lembit. All of that's coming up in the next hour.
Just because it's a beautiful game. It's very beautiful. I've got one thing in common with the England football team. We're both coming home. But hopefully they'll have some silver. Great to see you, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. That is Mark Littlewood. After the news, he's going to carry on. But before that, big thank you to our guests. That's Lucy White, Alan Cook, Andrew Bridgen, Matthew Hulbert, who still owes me money for that lift, and Sean Walsh. as well. A big thanks to the team. What is life without adventure? But it looks like tech's all been sorted out, and that is always great fun to work with them as well. So thank you, Putch. Thank you also, Aliona. Great people. But more than anything, thanks to you for having the courage to think for yourself. Do stay with us. This is the home of free speech. But more than anything, a place where you can think for yourself. We're ruthless with the information that we've got, but generous with your views. And thank you for all the compliments as well. Do like and subscribe, and we'll of course be back tomorrow. But stay for Mark Littlewood. He is going to give you a chapter and verse about one of the most exciting football games I've seen in a very long time. But for me, from Washington, D.C., big thank you for watching. Here's the news.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. England pulled off a chaotic 3-2 thriller against Mexico in the World Cup last 16. 10 men, Bellingham brace, Kane penalty, Azteca drama. We're through to face Norway because of course we turn up when it matters least predictably. Expect half the country working from home tomorrow with 5 a.m. pub licenses and near 30 degrees Celsius heat. Speaking of which, welcome to heatwave number 3 of the summer. Nothing says, we're fine, like sweating through your commute on the Northern Line while drinking a hot coffee. Police leadership, a total mess of nepotism and cronyism, says a review, shocking no one. Farage's dodgy crypto mate is still handing out reform cards, Kate's doing 3 peaks for charity, and Starmer's getting NATO side-eye. Same chaos, different day. God save the king, and pass the ice lollies. Laters, tigers.
The sombrero was flattened. The altitude was eviscerated. The tacos were smashed. The tequila was shot. England have triumphed over the host nation and have made it through to the last 8, where we will face Norway. What a night of football. I can't believe anyone would have wanted to sleep through that. One of the greatest World Cup matches of all time. I've got 2 great wingmen and 3 great guests to take us through everything that happened at the Aztec Stadium the other night, where England knocked out. Remember, we're not calling them Mexico. We're calling them Mr. Moonbelly. And for those of you who are new viewers who need an explanation there, let me make this very, very plain and clear to you. Mexico is based on an old Aztec language, and we here at UK Live Online are a strictly English language only channel. So we looked into what Mex and Ico meant in Aztec, and Mex means moon, and Ico means belly or navel or center. So we decided that really our opponent was, pull up image 3 if you can, our opponent wasn't Mexico, it was Mr. Moonbelly. And Mr. Moonbelly, just like Dr. Congo before him, has been eliminated. The 3 Lions have done it. Let's please play clip number 2. Mr. Moonbelly has been fantastic England win. I'm going to be joined first by my wingman down the right wing, Paul Cox. But before we bring Paul in, let's see how he reacted to England's victory last night. That's clip number 1 of him watching the game in a ride home from a taxi, having done several hours of television. This man has not slept for several weeks, but he was still glued to England's triumph. Let's have a look at Coxie in clip number 1.
Oh my God! Get in there, England! Who did you think you were kidding, Mr. Mexico? If you thought old England was done, Wellington, Nelson, Churchill, Tuchel, Kane, Bellingham, Stones, Rice, Spence, Byrne, take a bow, heroes, great English heroes. What a result! What a game! England go marching on. See you, Norway. Here we come. Tatty bye, Mr. Moonbelly.
Paul, it was a bit of a boring match all in all, wasn't it? I can see that you nearly nodded off watching it. What a night. What a night. How was it for you?
Oh my God, the earth moved, didn't it? As Usyk said after he beat, when he was asked how he felt after he beat Anthony Joshua in September 2021, I feel I very feel. It was absolutely everything, wasn't it? It was the emotion. It was the stoicism. It was the way with our backs against the walls on foreign territory, looking defeated, with the crowd against us, with the referee against us, with everything against us. We still stood tall and we beat the Moonbellies. Look, I genuinely feel. Although that feels like a different man, because I don't feel that much right now, actually. I have no idea what time of day it is. But let me say this. I do feel as if there is something special that happened last night, genuinely special, and that sort of spirit could do something as amazing as win the World Cup, Mark.
Yeah, I've now reached the conclusion we've got the best chance in my lifetime to actually go the whole way. Look, one step at a time. We're still going to need somebody to beat France, us or somebody else, but incredible night. Let's bring in my other wingman, even further down the right wing. Having served a 5-match suspension, he has triggered Article 27 and is allowed back onto the field of play. Glyn, anything in your Glindex you want to pull out about yesterday's match? It was a red card for Kwanzaa, wasn't it? Was it a penalty for the Harry Kane offence? Anything that we missed? Did things really go against us? Or is that just how the game ebbs and flows?
Oh, it really went against us, Mark, but what a win, what a performance, what a team. And really, it wasn't about technique or tactics. It was just about heart and bloody soul, wasn't it? They were just fantastic. And uphill all the way. I mean, I had memories of Beckham in 98, Rooney in 2008. I thought, seen this movie before, here we go again. An ignoble failure, or a noble failure mainly. But no, we did it. 3 goals. They haven't conceded 3 goals at home in 27 years. Last team to do it was Brazil. Hadn't conceded a goal at home in this tournament. We got 3. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, and I say a shout out to Jordan Henderson, who's not had a big part to play in this match. Managed to get booked while he was sitting on the touchline, and then managed tragically to trip over the advertising hoarding as he was retreating from the England fans, having shouted Wonderwall, fell over and has broken his wrist. So I'm guessing he's out.
I'm not sure, Mark. I'm not sure it was a trip. I think he was trying to crowd surf. Martin Sandel
could well have been that.
Martin Sandel in the Times yesterday described him as the Bez of the England squad. And I think that's what he was doing. He was being the vibes man.
Yeah, could well be. But fantastic progress by England. You know, that's clearly our lead. We're going to get a lot more into reaction about that and whether England can go all the way. Of course, in the next round, they face Norway. I want to come on to them in a moment, but you'll see the results running through your screen. Australia-Egypt feels like a lifetime ago now. The Egyptians went through on penalties there. Morocco beat Canada 3-0. So a lot of people are asking the question on social media, which Muslim country will go the furthest in this World Cup? Will it be Morocco? Will it be Egypt? Or will it be England? We wait to see. Australia beating Egypt after a 1-1 draw. But just to show how global this game is, Christian countries, non-theist countries, Islamic countries, I've got a clip from an Egyptian wedding that they paused while the Australia-Egypt penalty shootout happened. Clip number 5, I think, is from the Egyptian wedding, if we can pull that up. There you go. Look, if the Egyptians will pause their wedding for it, then England, wake up. Don't go to sleep. You can pull a sickie, go into work late, book the day off, take a day's holiday, do something like that, right? Because if the Egyptians can do it, we can do it too. Let's get a bit of thought from what's in Cox's box. He correctly predicted, should have put some money on it, Paul. I hope you did. Brazil 1, Norway 2. That was the exact result. Haaland gets 2 goals. Neymar, in what will surely be his last Brazilian performance, gets a last-minute consolation penalty. Norway are through. They face us in the next round. Paul, what did you make of the game? And I also need some help from the audience here, because as you know, each of England's opponents, we're trying to turn into a caricature. It was pretty easy with Dr. Congo. I had to rely on my linguistic scholars to get to Mr. Moonbelly. I don't know what to call Norway. It just sort of means way of the north. So I need some damn good ideas on how we characterise Norway. But that was a pretty tidy win for them. And I think England-Norway is going to look like a high-end Premier League game, isn't it, Paul?
Yes, I think it is actually. And by the way, we will come up with a name. I just need a few moments. I've made a profession out of coming up with silly words or silly endings to perfectly serious situations. So that's going to be no issue whatsoever. All I need is just 40 winks. Right now, I take 39 winks, Mark, but I'm still running on adrenaline. Look, the Norway game was a very interesting game, and the reason I predicted Norway to win, I mean, obviously I got lucky with the score. I didn't use any conspiracy theories about the colours or anything. I didn't see a little red and white in there somewhere. Just happened to believe that Norway have got this sort of groundswell behind them, and Brazil, I'd not seen anything from Brazil by their very high standards to tell me that they might go on and do it. The same could be said for England previous to that. And what we're seeing in these knockout phases is the stomach, the guts, the heroism of teams. And we certainly saw that from England. We did not see that from Brazil. We may well have seen it from Norway. Let's not forget that it wasn't only England that showed heroics over the weekend. There were other heroics around as well. But fair play to Norway. Let's face it. Let's be honest. If you'd said before the games at the weekend, England go through and they play Norway, that's the one that we would have taken purely based on historic statistics. However, it's anyone's game now. It's the last 16. England carry on doing what they're doing. We'll be fine, I think.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident. For those of you who are compulsive gamblers like me, England are evens to win in 90 minutes. So we're the pretty hot favourites against Norway. But at this stage, nothing for granted. Glenn, let me bring you in on another fantastic match on Friday night, which we've glossed over a bit. That was Argentina versus Cape Verde. Nearly a sensational surprise. Argentina, the world champions, win 3-2 after extra time. I think there's a rumour, I don't know if it's been confirmed yet, that Vizinho, the Cape Verdean goalkeeper, is going to sign for Inter Miami, which would make Lionel Messi a teammate rather than an opponent. That was also one of the great games of the tournament. I'm obviously going to claim that England-Mexico tops it, but what a match, what an incredible tournament Cape Verde have had. They still remain unbeaten in 90 minutes in their entire World Cup history.
Yeah. It was brilliant. But I just want to flash back on the Norway game, though, because I think we perhaps missed the best bit of the whole game. Did you see the slanging match between the goalkeeper, Nyland, and Neymar, the penalty taker? They were going at it, hammer and tong. And I'm going, what language are they talking? Does Nyland talk Portuguese? Does Neymar talk Norwegian?
Norwegians speak about 18 languages each.
Yeah, some kind of Esperanto. I don't know, but it was a classic moment. And they were at it right until he actually took the penalty. But let's talk about Cape Verde anyway. They were brilliant. Tiny nation, huge performance, not just in that game alone. It was throughout the tournament. But really in this one, again, Vizinho was amazing. Cabral's goal, surely one of the goals of the tournament. Left back, steps in on his right foot, curls it in from 20 yards. It was just a peach of a goal. And they were at it right until the end. They could have equalised again. They fought back, and they nearly got it when they were 3-2 down, and it was in the 108th minute, or 118th minute, I should say. Fantastic game, fantastic achievement. They've certainly put Cape Verde on the map.
They've been one of the romance tales. Look, we've actually got a short clip of them arriving home to a complete hero's welcome. And it's worth remembering when they're looking out of the side of the jet and setting down on the tarmac that the road they're looking at is not usually busy. Have a look at Cape Verde's triumphant return home in clip number 4. Football, bloody hell. Amazing. Congrats to Cape Verde. Worth touching quickly on Paraguay versus France. Pretty ugly game. France just got through with an Mbappe penalty. Paraguay, would it be Chris Kamara who would have said defended like beavers? It wasn't quite enough. They were obviously going for a 0-0 draw. Now, as you know, on this show, unfortunately, we can't show you actual footage from the games because there's like copyright issues and we'd all be in prison overnight. But I've managed to smuggle some footage of the Paraguayan defenders chasing down and tackling Kylian Mbappe. I've managed to smuggle it in, and this is pretty much what the game looked like if we play clip number 6.
Mark,
Kylian Mbappe against the Paraguayan defence there.
They didn't have a single player. Paraguay didn't have a single player booked. I mean, the referee just turned a blind eye to everything. It's from Uzbekistan. God knows what the Uzbekistan league must be like. It must be really tasty if you let
Anyway, the French make it through. I was rather hoping, I have to say, despite Paraguay's tactics, for an upset there. But France face Morocco in the next round. I think that could be an upset. Fingers crossed. Anyway, let's move on to our first guest, fellow Southampton fan, Alex Cully, was the Reform UK parliamentary candidate for Southampton Itchin at the last general election. Ardent England fan too. Alex, how the bloody hell are you? What did you make of last night's match and the festivities around it, my friend?
I'm absolutely stunned, actually. I thought, how would England negotiate this test? Would we have the mental fortitude to persevere? You know how it's been in the past. We've tended to enjoy valiant defeats. And even though I'm wearing the black England shirt, I'm certainly not in mourning this afternoon. But honestly, I think we exchanged some messages earlier. That probably ranks as the best England performance I've ever seen, certainly in the knockout stages of any international tournament.
Yeah, you and I were saying that if you go all the way back to Euro 96, we thrashed the Dutch 4-1, which was an epic performance. But to that extent, it wasn't an exciting game because I think the Dutch scored right at the end. We had the game against Scotland where we won 2-0 after McAllister missed a penalty. But again, England were in control. This could have gone either way, right? And had Mexico managed to get a goal in the 103rd minute, it's difficult to see how England would have held on in extra time, especially having taken Kane off. So we had to put in that defensive, heroic performance for the last 20, 30 minutes. Felt like a week, right? Really dug in. Incredible defence. What did you make of... I mean, I think Bellingham you've got to give man of the match to. Well, what did you make of Pickford, who I've never been an enormous fan of? I mean, he's a perfectly good goalkeeper, but I've never considered him world class, but probably had his best game for England last night, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. And I've been one of his biggest critics, to be honest. The goal that we conceded against the Congo in the last match was, I thought he was a little bit questionable for that one. But yesterday, I thought he was outstanding, actually. In fact, it's difficult to find fault in any of the players yesterday, apart from possibly Jordan Henderson doing his wrist in the celebrations and possibly costing us a bit of depth going into the next fixture. I thought there was a number of players that really stepped up. I thought Gordon was excellent. I hadn't thought much of him in the previous matches of this tournament, but I really thought he was top draw yesterday. Bellingham, obviously, a standout. But I even thought, when Dan Burn came on and, we were coming under the cosh and balls were getting launched into the box, left, right and centre. I thought he was the player that, we needed at that moment. And it's almost like, actually, with the hydration breaks coming in, now the games are almost in different phases. And I thought the most important phase was the first one. We just needed to get out of that first phase of the game with intact, and we did. And just look, I was trying to read into the players' faces during the national anthems, and the atmosphere there was unbelievable, phenomenal atmosphere, and they were really pumped. And I just thought, we've got to try and survive this. And not only did we survive, we caught them with the sucker punch, and then I thought, well, you know what, if we can do this, then maybe we are going to go the distance. And Kansar getting sent off, I thought that was going to be a repeat of the kind of David Beckham style moments of the past and whatnot. Yeah. But we did it,
What do you reckon to Tuchel's tactical acumen? Fellow Saints fans on the ground have suggested to me that he might have used some Southampton tactics. Let's pull up image number 4. Is this actually the explanation of England's success? That we knew exactly what Mexico were going to do. But on a serious point, I think that the manager has used substitutions brilliantly. I've seen people on Twitter saying he's used his substitutions better than Gareth Southgate would even have a clue about. He's been absolutely pitch perfect on the substitutions he's made. My only slight worry is haven't really seen enough of Ollie Watkins and Tony, I think. Yeah. But I mean, that's a kind of rounding error complaint. What do you make of our German manager, the last German at this World Cup, of course?
Yeah, well, it does make sense, actually, that there is possibly a little bit of a Spygate connection, because in Germany, it's all perfectly above board, of course, to look at your opposition's tactics in advance of the match. And I believe our manager, he currently still is our manager, I believe he was actually on the German World Cup winning team, wasn't he? He was in the staff.
You're right. So there you go. Yeah. It's not just a joke image. This could be true. We could have breaking news here about how we won.
Yes, absolutely. Well, West Ham like to claim, the responsibility for the 1966 World Cup. Yeah. So I'm making a very tenuous link here. But yeah, I thought his tactics. I looked at the lineup and I thought quite an aggressive lineup. I thought actually quite bold. I wasn't really sure what to make of it. I wasn't really sold on Konsa, to be honest. I probably would have gone Stones because of the Man City kind of understanding, maybe in these circumstances, because I thought in the atmosphere, communication would be difficult. And so if you've got that kind of instinctive understanding between the three Man City players, that might have helped a little bit. But actually bringing him on the time that he did, maybe as a fresh pair of legs, did help us, I think, the last 15 minutes or so. And yeah, I can't really fault it. I think we've got a real chance. I think this manager is a winner. He's a tournament manager. He doesn't care what people think about him. I think that's a big difference between him and Southgate. I think Southgate carried a lot of his demons with him.
Yeah,
I think this guy doesn't care what people think about him, and that kind of arrogance, if you like, almost is transmitting to the players on the pitch, and especially Bellingham, who you need that bit of swagger to make a difference sometimes. And hopefully now against Norway, which will be a difficult test, I think. Bit cliched, of course, but I do. They really do understand English football, and we shouldn't underestimate them. I think the last time we played them were in a competitive fixture was 1992, and if I remember correctly, I'd been suspended from school. And my mum said, "You're not watching this match." And it was probably a good job that I didn't, because we lost 2-0. So,
yeah, okay, I can remember that, I think, yeah. Did you get suspended from school in the hope that would give you the opportunity to watch the match, or was that incidental?
I think it was incidental. I was a bit of a nightmare at school. But yeah, it was a pretty terrible performance by England back in the day. But I'd like to think now it would be different, but obviously we've got to cut the service to Haaland. If we cut the service to Haaland, we win. It's as simple as that, in my opinion.
Now, two other questions I've got for you, Alex, and then I'm going to have to ask you to make a prediction as well. What do you make of all the fuss about the altitude thing? Perhaps we can pull up image 1. Henry Winter took a picture of England training. I think that's image number 1. And it's not obviously that they're training at the highest altitude. Have we got image number 1? Scarlett, Pooch, let's have a look. Anyway, they're not. Yeah, there you go. Well, I thought we were supposed to get used to high altitude. That's the lowest bloody altitude place you can see in the entire picture. So as I commented, training at the lowest altitude they could find. Somebody, quick as a flash, replied saying, I think David Lammy booked the training pitch. But do you think that was just a whole load of hogwash about all this altitude stuff? Somebody else pointed out to me, I don't remember being told about this in 1986 when we played Argentina there. So was that just a kind of media storm? Or does it matter? We've got a scientist on later in the programme to help us understand it. But what's your gut instinct? Whole bunch of fluff, or did it matter?
I think it did matter to a point, but I think the managers managed the game management was the key thing. And I was told by one of my friends who's a big rugby supporter. He said, "Look, this is not a big deal. Rugby teams go to South Africa and play in South Africa at very high altitudes on a regular basis, and they come out of that, victorious." And so I think the altitude thing had the potential to be difficult from a mental perspective. And I thought, especially in the first 10, 15 minutes, I think if we would have really gone for it in the first 10, 15 minutes, then we could have played into their hands. But I thought we managed that phase of the game well, and spared our best for the phase just before half time, where, obviously we were set up to counter, and counter we did. And we really were, that was a shock to them. They weren't expecting that, you could tell. And then the crowd is not completely confident for them, and that's what turned it for me.
Now, what about? I'm going to be critical of our manager over one thing, which seems a bit unkind of me, given how well he's done as England manager. The right back position. Okay, you could argue we've got unlucky. Kwanzaa sent off, now presumably suspended, unless we can get on the phone to Donald Trump to get him to lobby for us. Reece James injured or below par. I don't know when he's due back. Livramento didn't even, had to leave before the start of the tournament. Really problematic position for us. And we didn't take Trent Alexander-Arnold. Why the hell didn't we take Trent Alexander-Arnold? He would have been in there for me as at least our second choice right back. And now we are caught a bit short. Can we blame the manager for that?
A little bit, but I think it's a manager who wants to make a statement through his selections, and he didn't think that Trent was the right player for him, so he didn't pick him, and that's kind of who he is. He's not going to bow to what the public think, I don't think. But we do have a problem there. Maybe Keir Starmer, he's an international lawyer, isn't he? So maybe he can get on the phone, and I'm not sure he'll have luck, the same luck that Donald Trump will have. But I think we do have a problem there. Who's going to slot in there in the next game? Because Kwanzaa's going to be going to be banned. And some are saying,
I don't know when Reece James is back. Is there a chance he'll be okay by Saturday?
There's a hamstring injury, isn't it? So I don't. Well, that's what I was told. So I don't think he'll be rushed back. So someone's saying that Kwanzaa may go to right back.
Well, he's suspended.
Is he suspended? No, not Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa.
Oh, Kwanzaa could go to right back. Stones in the middle. Yeah.
Possibly.
Okay, maybe. Now, look, Alex, I'll be seeing you very soon for a game before the World Cup ends. Southampton's first pre-season friendly against the Spitfires of Eastleigh. But before I let you go, throughout this show, we're doing a competition of predictions. It's me against the rest of the world. I am well ahead at the moment, but because it's me against the rest of the world, I'm allowed to go first for each match. And for Portugal versus Spain at 8 o'clock tonight, I've gone for Portugal 1, Spain 2. It's the score after 90 minutes that I'm looking for. So after 90 minutes, what will the score be in your hunch or opinion? Alex, you can go for any score at all, apart from 2-1 to the Spanish.
2-2.
2-2. There you go. I've got a bet on that game, which I'll reveal later on. That should be another corker then. So many great games. Alex, great to see you. Good luck, my friend. Look forward to catching up when the regular season begins. Let's bring back in my wingmen. Cox in the box and Glyn Brailsford the Glindex, because I said that we would try and profile as many of the obscure countries in the World Cup as we could. And we've gone through a good number of them that you may barely have not even have heard of. I didn't know how to pronounce Curacao before this tournament. But we have picked another totally obscure country, that I have heard of, and to tell us about that incredibly obscure country. What have you got in Cox's box about the country and the people of Belgium, Paul?
Well, obviously, Belgium is the home of the biggest grift in geopolitics, the European Union Parliament. What a place that is. What a waste of money. I don't care for it. But what I do care for is the chips and mayonnaise that they are famed for. I was in Brussels earlier this year. I did have the chips and mayonnaise. Look at me. Of course I did. I went back for seconds and thirds. But Belgium has an underpants museum where they show off the underpants worn by celebrities and notable people in Belgium, which I'm not sure how many of them there are. Most notable, I think, is probably Tintin or Poirot, who, by the way, the Belgians pretend is an actual real person. You can buy his birth certificate in shops in Brussels, I believe. But the saxophone was invented in Belgium by Adolphe Saxophone. Adolphe, a name you don't get to hear of very much anymore. I doubt any of us went to school with an Adolphe, but, you know, I can't understand why. There are lots of things going on. I mean, apparently, and this is Angela's facts, by the way, so I never like to claim the facts that aren't mine, but New York City was actually founded by a Belgian, Peter Manute, a Walloon, I should say, from what was now Belgium, bought the island of Manhattan in 1626 and helped establish New Amsterdam, which it was previously known as. It's now New York. There's some facts for you. Cox is in the box, full of beans, no drink.
So this is what I want to know from you guys in the chat. Can you actually name any real famous Belgians? Right, I agree. Hercule Poirot and Tintin are vying it out for the top position. I didn't know that Sax created the saxophone. He might count. I do have one, so don't put this one in the chat. Did you know Audrey Hepburn was Belgian, or at least born in Brussels? But has anyone in the chat got any famous Belgians that they can name, not including, because we'll come on to this now, famous Belgian football players? Because Glyn, what have you got in your Glindex about Belgium as a football nation? They always seem to have been the bridesmaid and never the bride, always there or thereabouts. Well, always thereabouts, never there, really. And we're kind of reaching the end of a golden generation where, if you look back over the last decade or so, perhaps that was their great chance to win a trophy. They haven't done so. But tell us about Belgium's football history and who to look for in the present football team.
I'm going to dwell on their recent history rather than going way back, although they were amongst the instigators of football. But the real question about Belgium is, are they serious overachievers for a little country, or are they serial bottlers, just looking at their record over the last 10, 15 years? Are they a team above, did they punch above their weight, or did they just waste their talent? What you can't deny is they produced a fantastic crop of players. Eden Hazard, Vincent Kompany, Jan Vertonghen, Toby Alderweireld, I can never pronounce his name, but I think I got it right there. And players who are still playing at this tournament, Kevin De Bruyne, Thibaut Courtois, and the lumbering Romelu Lukaku, he's still there. But they've just never seemed to win the titles they deserve. And this is despite the fact that they were in the FIFA rankings, the world number one for nearly 5 years, including a continuous streak between September 2018 and March 2022. And in fact, they're the only team to reach number one in those rankings without winning either a World Cup or a major trophy. So they achieved something, even if it wasn't silverware. I guess the peak was the 28 World Cup. Do you recall they came third there? They played fantastic football in Russia. You might recall that brilliant 3-2 win against Japan, last kick of the game, they won. And then they beat Brazil 2-1 in the quarterfinals. Then they paid to us in the third place playoff, but I think we'd lost interest by then. Nonetheless, the record is really impressive. Third at the World Cup in 2018, as I've just said, quarterfinalist in 2014. They're still in this tournament, don't forget. They also reached the last stage of the Euros in 2016 and 2020. But it has been pretty much bridesmaid rather than bride, I think. So what went wrong? Well, age has undoubtedly caught up with some of those players we already mentioned, Kompany, etc. They've fallen by the wayside. Kevin De De Bruyne looks on his last legs. So does Lukaku. But also, there's been a history of friction in the dressing room, I'm afraid. Most famously between De Bruyne and Courtois. They were part of a love triangle back in 2012 when Courtois had an affair.
That ain't going to end well.
He had an affair with De Bruyne's girlfriend when they were both youngsters at Chelsea. Needless to say, that relationship remains frosty, probably permafrosty, I imagine. So did it all go wrong? I don't, for a population of 11 million, I don't think so. Terrific.
Yeah,
country.
they're pretty good. They're a pretty tasty footballing nation.
And then, quick look at today's players. They've got Yuri Tielemans still, who's young enough for the next tournament.
Now, I argue that Tielemans is the most underrated footballer on the planet. I'm not saying he's the best footballer on the planet. I'm just saying he does not get nearly enough recognition. He's an absolutely fantastic midfielder.
Completely agree. And they got Jeremy Doku, who was, one of the sharpest players at the end of last season in the Premiership. You'll recall Doku withdrew from a game earlier in the tournament against Iran, which ended in a draw, to attend the birth of his son. His teammates supported his move, but I reckon he should have withdrawn 9 months earlier, Mark.
Yeah, very good, very good. I probably a yellow card for that one, though. Having got your Article 27 reprieve, I'm putting you back in the book. My favourite story about a famous Belgian was indeed about a Belgian footballer. That's why I couldn't use it. I've seen in the chat, Ted Rogers, somebody said. Do you mean the poet? Eddie Merckx, Rubens, Magritte, the artist. Luca Bressel was a snooker player, I think, perhaps. But my favourite story about Belgians was in a religious studies examination in an English school for, I think, 10 or 11-year-olds. And the question in the religious studies examination was, who helped Jesus with the cross? And the answer given by one of the kids was Kevin De Bruyne, which it was not entirely accurate. So I think it was Joseph of Arimathea, wasn't it, who helped Jesus with the cross? Anyway, that's all you need to know about Belgium, from Cox in the Box about the country, from the Glindex about football, not to be underrated, even if they're not at their peak. We've got two great guests coming up straight after the news with Edward Hughes. Don't go anywhere.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. England pulled off a chaotic 3-2 thriller against Mexico in the World Cup last 16. 10 men, Bellingham brace, Kane penalty, Azteca drama. We're through to face Norway because of course we turn up when it matters least predictably. Expect half the country working from home tomorrow with 5 a.m. pub licenses and near 30 degrees Celsius heat. Speaking of which, welcome to heatwave number 3 of the summer. Nothing says, we're fine, like sweating through your commute on the Northern Line while drinking a hot coffee. Police leadership, a total mess of nepotism and cronyism, says a review, shocking no one. Farage's dodgy crypto mate is still handing out reform cards, Kate's doing 3 peaks for charity, and Starmer's getting NATO side-eye. Same chaos, different day. God save the king, and pass the ice lollies. Laters, Tigers.
Thanks, Edward Hughes with the news. Glad to see, which I'm sure it is everywhere back in Blighty, that the England-Mexico game is the top headline of the day, and deservedly so. Let's welcome back to the show Paul Scagnelli, Arsenal ultra, England fanatic. I think last time round you were trying to use your son's tech, right? Which was way beyond your technical abilities, if I remember, Paul. You're on your own reliable tech right now, aren't you? How the devil are you? Have you slept? Did you enjoy the match?
Can you hear me? That's the first thing.
We got it's pretty bad microphone reception there.
Oh, for goodness sake. Can you hear me now a bit better?
Paul, I'm going to get the tech team to come back to you. Let's bring in my other guest while we try and sort out Paul's tech. He had this last time. Probably just got to put him on his phone. If somebody in the technical department can get in touch with Paul, tell him to use his phone. I reckon he's using his son's Nintendo again, which never bloody works. But let's come back to him after my next guest, who's been patiently waiting. Tom Whipple is science, what are you, chief correspondent, editor, enthusiast for the Times newspaper. I'm inviting you on, Tom, as a scientist, not, I think it's fair to say, as a football fanatic. And I wanted to know all about, I should also add, Tom is my cousin, so we've brought a bit of nepotism to the show, which I'm always heartily in favour of in every walk of life. Tom, tell us about this altitude thing. You wrote it up for the Times. I don't know whether this is quack science or not. Obviously, we can look back on the game and say that England won, but you would have thought we were asking the England team to scale Everest twice over before they kicked a ball. But you studied it. Tell us what it means, what it is, why it affects people athletically.
Yeah, look, it is a massive advantage that the Mexicans had. We already know that home advantage is big. You know, there's really good. I mean, as you say, I'm vaguely the science guy. There's really good studies that show that for the home advantage, you get about a third of a goal you can expect as a home team, and we can see that from things like COVID when we got rid of crowds suddenly, and that dropped completely because it turns out that maybe pertinent to last night, a massive crowd supporting a team and intimidating ref is a big advantage. But on top of that, yeah, they were at altitude, and England hadn't trained at altitude, and it's not that high, Mexico City. It's like 2 Ben Nevises. It's not high enough that you're going to get sick. It's not like some of these other sort of South American stadiums where people have to take oxygen and you see, Messi goes for a vomit midway through. But it is high enough that you've got about, 15, 20% less oxygen in your red blood cells. And if you haven't had time to make red blood cells, that's going to make a big difference. The other thing that's going to make a big difference is the ball flies differently. There's just less air. It spins differently. It goes faster. And if you're the Mexico team and you've been used to this, then that's again something where you've got this extra thing on top of your home advantage. So I would say that, England absolutely played a blinder last night. It was completely against them. And yes, so I did also have a go at this quack science. I would say it's completely reasonable science. It was in a chamber in London, called the Altitude Centre, where they train mountaineers to acclimatise them before they go up mountains. I arrived, and it turned out I was merely the 12th reporter who'd had this idea that week. They closed. So the guy was very much enjoying making us all train extremely hard.
What did they subject you to, Tom? You were trying to get, look, you're a very fit, agile and healthy man, but I doubt you'd make the England starting 11. So what were you subjected to try and in some way work out what the experience was likely to be for the England players, who are probably marginally more athletic than you are at playing association football, I would guess?
Well, yeah, no, they do have their skill sets. We were in this chamber which was reduced to the oxygen levels that you would experience at the Azteca Stadium, and then I was put on a peloton and I was made to sprint extremely fast as I could. I was motivated by saying that there was indeed a leaderboard amongst the UK press, and I would find out whether I had beaten the Mail or the Guardian. So he made me sprint in 6-second sections, which is 6 seconds is surprisingly long when you're desperately trying to beat the Mail. And then I had sort of 24 seconds to calm down, then 6 seconds. So I guess simulating a game where you're doing periodic sprints. And the idea is that at altitude, it takes you longer to recover. The exercise hits you harder. So those initial sprints are fine, but it's the accumulated effect of it. And to be completely honest, after 3 minutes, I was almost on the floor. Also, to be completely honest, I can't tell you whether that's because of the altitude or because I was simply exercising harder than I have done in quite a long time.
Yeah, I'm usually on the floor in 3 minutes on a standard running machine at a slow pace without any altitude problems at all. I did have a mate at the game yesterday who very, very kindly sent me a photo because I wanted to get sort of a sense of the occasion. He was having a beer at half time at the Aztec Stadium. Can we call up image number 8? I think it is my mate at the game last night having a beer at the stadium. Image number 8, that was the view of having a pint at the Azteca Stadium. Quite a challenge for him to even neck a pint of beer, I think. But Tom, am I also right? Because what I couldn't quite get my head around on the science here is it just that the Mexicans are used to it because they play a lot of games there, so they know how to sort of manage themselves better, not to get completely exhausted in the first 15 minutes of the game? Perhaps the game needs to be played at a slower pace. Perhaps they're more used to the flight of the ball, all of those sort of things. Or is it that England, if they had, say, 10 days to acclimatise, could have overcome that, but had to kind of just fly straight in, had 2 nights at a hotel with all sorts of Mexican fans trying to keep them awake? did they need longer than that? Is it impossible to
Yeah.
acclimatise in 2 days? Would a week have been enough? Would 10 days have been enough? Or is it 10
10
years of
days.
Mexican experience that beats us?
10 days would have been ideal. I mean, obviously there is the experience issue, but look, if you're a mountaineer, what you do is you go up a mountain slowly in stages. Your body gets used to it. All sorts of physiological changes happening, including the simplest one, which is you make more red blood cells. And this means that you can survive. I mean, the classic example in mountaineering is Mount Kilimanjaro. It's a really easy mountain to climb. Loads of people go up it really fast. And so you end up getting more cases of altitude sickness there than anywhere else in the world almost because of that. So 3 days is not enough. What the physiologists say is the best thing is to either have 10 days so that you've essentially completely acclimatized, or to come straight there so that you haven't acclimatized, but at least you haven't had sleepless nights where your body's struggling to adjust. But almost the worst thing to do, which is what I think FIFA mandated, is to turn up 2 or 3 days in advance so that you haven't acclimatized, but you have spent quite a long time not being able to sleep, which probably isn't assisted by having a bunch of Mexican fans outside letting off fireworks as well.
Yeah, no, I get all of that. Now, what I was most disappointed in, Tom, is that I think you were initially going to go on an assignment for your newspaper, The Times, to try and find the most Mexican-dominated bar in London and report the reaction from the Mexican fans whilst wearing an England shirt. But this was abandoned because of the ludicrous health and safety rules at the News Corporation. Have I got that
Exactly
right?
that. Basically that. It was difficult to find somewhere where I could be guaranteed to be amongst the Mexicans. So the decision was taken instead simply to go. So I haven't had much sleep, like I'm sure many people watching this. But the difference is I didn't have to pretend to my boss this morning that I'm nice and fresh, because the reason I haven't had much sleep is my boss sent me out to Covent Garden. I ended up spending time in 2 or 3 pubs around Covent Garden with a fairly hardcore of fans. I wouldn't say this was properly sort of rowdy England game. This was more people who'd made quite a considered decision on a Sunday night to completely screw up their week in a good cause. And it was interesting watching them because there are really big tactical decisions to be made if you're one of this sort of this sort of hardcore of fans who aren't merely watching at home but watching in the pub. Such as what happens if the game is delayed. Then you've planned your drinking so that you think you can make it through in a sort of reasonable and moderate sense to 4 a.m., having started at 9 p.m. But you've now added in 2 extra pints because of the delay. What happens? And this was a real dilemma for some of the drinkers. There was a man who decided at that point that he was going to nap. And he did it quite mindfully. And in the middle of the pub, he just sat down and napped for an hour during the delay until the national anthem started. And then he arrived refreshed and ready to give England the support that they, I'm sure, could feel coming from, I was outside the Freemasons Temple in Covent Garden, which, as you'll know, is where the Football Association was set up. So if football was coming home, I was at the home.
Well, there you go. You picked the right spot. For my sins, I decided to take my life in my own hands. Okay, I am here in Spain, but I would say that there is a preponderance of England fans here. So yesterday I just grabbed the first hat I had available, the first shirt I had available, and wandered into town to get some lunch. If you can pull up image 5, you'll see the restaurant that I happened upon. There's me with Mr. Moonbelly with the hat and the shirt that I randomly grabbed. And if you pull up image 6 as well, you'll see there's me doing a little bit of filming. Now, having done all of that, I feel I do owe an apology. As you'll notice from that last image, if we can put up image 6 again, as you'll notice from that last image, if you look at the right-hand side of my jersey, that is the Adidas logo. And Adidas, as you will know, is a German company that is now based in the United States of America. So if we have any German viewers or any American viewers watching, I apologize profusely for the cultural appropriation that I practiced yesterday here in Calidore.
I'm sorry you had to shave.
Sorry?
I'm sorry you had to shave. Is this on account of wanting to present a professional show? You felt you go clean shaven?
I've now had to shave as well. So as I say, I apologise for the cultural appropriation of the Adidas logo. It was very, very, very bad of me. The biggest nightmare for me is, I mean, I think I look pale enough to be English, but in fact, it turns out there were quite a lot of people in town who definitely wanted England to lose and were typically Spanish speakers. I can't distinguish between a Spanish accent, a Mexican accent, a Costa Rican accent, or whatever. And because I was wearing all this Mexican garb, they all came over and wanted to interact with me and started talking to me in Spanish. And I would just sort of nod and do the thumbs up rather than reply saying, I'm backing England, mate. Look, Tom, before I let you go, and I know this isn't really your field of expertise, but nevertheless, I'm going to have to press you. I am doing a predictions game throughout this tournament in which I take on the rest of the world and I predict the score in each and every match after 90 minutes. So disregard any possibility of extra time and penalties. I am presently winning, but because it is me against the rest of the world, I go first, and I need your prediction for the USA versus Belgium game. I have gone for USA 1, Belgium 2 after 90 minutes. What's your shout on that one?
Obviously, I have zero expertise, which is why it would be especially pleasing if I beat you. After 90 minutes, I am going to go for 1-1.
1-1. That's a pretty safe bet, actually. That's a pretty safe bet. I may well come away with a bloody nose from that. Tom, great to see you. Look forward to catching up soon. I hope that you have recovered as rapidly as the England team from the altitude nightmare. You're looking fit and well. I don't think we've managed to get Paul back, so I'm going to try and get... let's see if we can get Paul Scanielli back just before I come back to my guest. Tom, thank you very much. Good luck for the rest of the tournament. Football's coming home.
Cheers.
Let's see if we got Paul back. I know he's... Paul,
hello, Mark. How you doing? I'm back.
There we go. Loud and
Can you
clear.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Thank God England are better than my Wi-Fi. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I have no. I was blaming your son's tech.
No, this is just. I don't know now. This is now my phone playing up. Maybe. Yeah.
Right.
I was on it too much all through the night. What a great evening! How brilliant to be with you this morning and with a positive result.
What a match, wasn't it? I'm genuinely trying to think. I mean, there have been some brilliant World Cup matches, the final between Argentina and France, but obviously as an England fan, you're invested in it more. I can't think of an England game that has been as tremendous as that. I'm not saying it's the best game England have ever played, just as a spectacle of football off the scale. Good. I mean, just absolute. I usually wear a watch, but it's charging now. And on 3 occasions, my watch blinked that my pulse rate had exceeded 150 beats per minute, and I was just sitting down and watching the bloody game. So yeah, pretty epic. But Paul, what?
Yeah, like you say, Mark, I don't think it was, again, this particular group of England players, it doesn't seem like the most technical that we've had in all the years that we've, in the last years. But certainly, I would say since Euro '96, this is a group that has given us such a togetherness and such a determination. I've not seen something like this for such a time, and they were brilliant last night. The work rate, going to a place in Mexico like that under that sort of pressure, having the red card when that happened, and I just think they show such character, and it gives us real hope. I mean, I don't think Norway are particularly a massive threat. We just got to deal with obviously the one player, Mr. Haaland. As long as we can kind of handle him, I can't see that being a problem. And then you just don't know in one-off games. I think France are the team to beat, and I think they'll go all the way to the final. But in a one-off game, maybe maybe Tuchel's got it right. He's picked a group of players that are about commitment and dedication more than technical ability, maybe.
Yeah, that could be it. I mean, the spirit was there for all to see. With your Arsenal hat on there, Paul, I want to pick your brains again about the Arsenal contribution that's going to be necessary. And it's my theory that to win the World Cup, you obviously need to bank on Kane and Bellingham being brilliant throughout. And, so far, so good. But I'm treating them as bankers. I think if we're going to score a shed load of goals, those are our two most important players. But to actually win the bloody thing, I think it's the Arsenal contingent who we need to come really good. Declan Rice has been pretty good. You know, I'd give him a solid 7 out of 10 so far. Madueke possibly, and Saka, and I'm missing anybody else from Arsenal in the England team?
Eze obviously as well, who maybe can play a part. But I mean, Declan's obviously, he's just the season he's had, and you know, he's, as an Arsenal fan, I'm naturally a little bit worried because he's got this slight injury that possibly could come up at any time. So I don't know how much he'll be available for Arsenal at the start of the new season. But no, I mean, you know, going back to the Arsenal players, I mean, it was sad to see sort of Gabriel lose out the battle to Haaland the other night. Haaland's certainly got Gabriel. He seems to have Gabriel's number at the moment. He just knows how to play him. But no, I think, you know, Saka, like we said before when we had a chat, Mark, I just don't see him. He's just not fit. He's not match ready. He done very well. Lovely ball last night, but he's just not the Saka that we all know. But we'll just get the best we can get out of him, you know. Listen, I mean, I don't.
Paul, do you think we need to nurse Declan Rice at all? I mean, I was thinking aloud. I think in retrospect, it was a silly idea, but I was almost toying with the idea: should we rest him for the Mexico game in the hope that we get through and he's fresh as a daisy for the later games? But I think we're just going to have to ask him to play basically every minute of every match, aren't we?
I think it's the same problem Arteta had. You know, you just can't rest him. When you're in the running like this, you need Declan. Bellingham was sensational last night, wasn't he? I mean, he was just absolutely, he was making runs like David Platt, you know, those late runs into the box, just fantastic. But you need Declan with him. You have to have Declan. And I think literally what we got, 3 games left to the final. I think that you just got to keep with him and just hope that, you know, for me as an Arsenal fan, obviously hope that he's not too bad at the end of it. But we've just got to go for it now, haven't we? We're in the latter stages and we've just got to go for it.
Who would you partner with him in central midfield? I mean, obviously Elliot Anderson's is he the most expensive British transfer ever? Again, he's been okay, but he hasn't been on fire. Would he be your pick? Would you maybe go for Kobe Mainu?
I'd like to go. I think let's go at Norway. I mean, the threat is Haaland, but let's go at them. I would even put Bellingham with Declan and go with Eze or go with Rodgers or go with someone as a 10 there and have a go at Norway. You know, I think, like we said, it's Haaland. It's Haaland or nothing with them. There's nothing really else.
Do you think it's Haaland, or do you think it's cutting off the supply to Haaland rather than, you know, if the ball's within a yard of Haaland, we're already in trouble? Is it a question of winning that midfield battle just to stop the supply lines and hoping that, you know, Haaland only gets a dozen touches throughout the match or whatever?
Well, I thought Brazil looked awful yet last night. They were awful, and they just didn't handle Haaland right at all. They were right, the commentary team. They were saying, you know, they just didn't get tight to him. They gave him space. And as long as England don't give him space, you know, even in the Premier League, even against lesser teams, he didn't always score. You just had to get tight to him. So as long as the team do that, I think that they'll be fine. Norway's not. I just don't think that's a big problem. Obviously, then it's probably maybe Argentina. I think more so Colombia, probably, to be fair. But then, you know, I just can't see England not getting to the final. Then it's a one-off game against France, and you just don't know. On a one-off game, you know, I fancy France. I fancied France from the start. I think, you know, they're just so exciting to watch and everything else. But on a one-off game, you just don't know. And this, I mean, look at Kane's interview. As an Arsenal fan, I can't admire a guy more, really. He's Spurs, but he's you know, he could hardly talk at the end of that game. He just gave everything. Just such a great leader. And, you know, we've got some real characters in this England team that I don't think we've had since Euro 96. And it's lovely to be able to, as a nation, to warm to this group of players again.
Great. Paul, look, lovely to have you with us. We'll get you on again. Hopefully England can go still deeper in the tournament, I'm hoping. And, let's hope that your Arsenal boys keep turning it on for England. Let's bring back in my wingman on the Glenn Brailsford on the right wing. Paul Cox bombing even further down the right wing. Look, Paul, what do you think of this whole altitude problem? There's... You know, my cousin Tom always says that, you know, I'm inclined to believe the science that I want to believe in rather than the actual science. But I wonder if we can pull up clip number 3. This is basically the approach that I think England took to altitude. It's just overcome it with sheer goddamn grit. If we've got clip. That's the way to tackle it, isn't it? But what did you make of that? Can guts overcome the science and the red blood cells and all of that sort of thing? If we're going to win this tournament, Paul, we've just got to win it on guts, haven't we? And a lot of skill from Bellingham, I guess.
Yeah, look, the difference between perhaps us three and those elite sportsmen is that they're elite sportsmen, and therefore they can adjust to the conditions a lot better than the average bloke who do have a lot of guts, just not the sort of guts that we were talking about earlier. But look, Declan Rice was interviewed after the game. He said that during the game, most of the players didn't feel the adverse effects of the altitude. They did do in a couple of training sessions, but only mildly. And I think, do you know what got us through? The spirit, the adrenaline, that we are going to do this for England, and it paid off.
Yeah. Glenn,
Can I come in on that, Mark?
Glenn, I was asking you earlier, and Paul as well, and look, I haven't been able to use Google or AI to find it. Maybe the chat can help us. I see one good idea in the chat for Norway. We've got to call them, show them the doorway. But any football nerds in the chat, England won that match last night with 33% possession. I defy you to find any other England game where we have won the match with 33% possession. I mean, very rarely would we have possession as low as that in any game. Often we dominate games, but 33% England possession and a victory. I'm putting it out there. That might be the first time it's ever happened. I know if you go back pre-1966, the stats are nothing like as definitive in the modern era. What do you think, Glyn? I mean, we won without possession. Blood and thunder needed to get past Norway?
Absolutely. I just want to go back on the altitude thing, Mark. I do think it's a thing, but what people haven't brought into the equation is just that England's players were better than Mexico.
Yeah.
So I think we got a 20% advantage there, that our players were 20% better than them, and we performed on the day. So it kind of cancelled out the altitude stuff.
Yeah.
Or altitude, as the papers are calling it this morning.
Yeah. So anybody in the chat, Paul, Glenn, you can't even think of a match where we have been beaten 2-1 in possession, but have emerged not just as winners, as worthy winners. That's the key thing, right? We weren't lucky. We deserved to win.
Now, I tell you what, Mark, I think by a clear distance, the oldest person that's been on this show. So I was around for the 66 World Cup, and this is without doubt our best performance since July 66. England 4, West Germany 2.
There you go.
It's an emotional thing, and of course we're still in that. But looking back, even the great wins, the 5-1 against Germany, well, we really trounced them. The 4-1 against Holland, we really trounced them. 2-1 or 2-0 or whatever it was against Argentina. That was a tight game, to and fro, but ultimately we were on top. The great thing about this game is it had absolutely everything. Absolutely everything. But it showed true grit and determination, the sort of steel we've just not seen, probably from everybody on this panel right now, have not seen England do.
Now, let's look ahead before we go. We're into extra time, but it felt like there was about 3 hours of it in the England-Mexico game. Let's look ahead to Portugal versus Spain. This is one tasty little fixture, this one, isn't it? I mean, I've gone for a Spain 2-1 win, but on a knife edge, I've also, my bet of the day, if we pull up image number 9, my bet of the day, despite the fact that I think the Spaniards are likely to win, image number 9 will show you my bet of the day, which is that Ronaldo will score. I don't know if we've got image number 9 to show, but that was my bet, 20 quid on Ronaldo to score at any time. Odds of 3.1. I think that's a pretty good bet. Even if they lose, could well be. Of course, if they do lose, it will be Ronaldo's last game for Portugal. But Glyn, I think you've got something in your Glindex about the Spain-Portugal border involving something to do with time travel. This was intriguing. What have you got for me?
That's absolutely right. I mean, I wanted to concentrate on if there's a gulf between Portugal and Spain as teams. There's actually a gulf.
You're not, because I'm asking you about the time travel.
I know,
thing.
that's where I'm coming to. There's actually a gulf between the countries, but you can bridge that gulf through a zip line. It's 750 meters. You get there in like a minute and a half, and you arrive in Portugal, because Spain's higher than Portugal at that point. You arrive in Portugal before you actually took off, so to speak, because of the time difference.
Oh, right. Portugal's on British time, isn't it? Yeah. So Portugal's on our time. So how long does this zip line thing take?
I think it's about 75 seconds.
Let's have a
Minute and
look
a
at
half.
it. I think we've got a clip of this zip line thing. It's clip number 9, I think, if we can show clip number 9. Thanks to whoever said in the chat, have I got enough money to get home? I bought my return ticket before arriving, so hopefully I might need to hitchhike my way to the airport there. Let's have a look at clip number 9 of this zip line where you can go back in time from Spain to...
We won't be up here.
There you go. I'm a bit worried FIFA are gonna take advantage of this and sort of, you know, if a result goes in the way that the powers that be don't like, they're going to induce time travel in Article 28 and insist that the match needs.
Well,
to
you're
be
the Doctor Who fan
replayed.
here, Mark. You've got to believe in time travel.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm just worried that FIFA are going to use it badly. Are you looking forward to this one, Paul? Portugal versus Spain, 8 o'clock.
Yeah, it's a very tasty morsel. It's a very tasty morsel. Of course, it's it's a derby. You don't get too many derbies at international level. It's going. There's some great players. I think Spain are legit. I think Portugal, whilst they still do have a pretty good collective there, I think the reliance on Cristiano Ronaldo might be a problem. I know the man's 41. He's only 5 years younger than me, but slightly better shape. So people would, I'm sure, would add, but
only slightly better, I would say, Paul. Only slightly.
Yeah, I tell you what,
better.
he couldn't do. He couldn't do some of the eating I could do. He just wouldn't have it in him, and ultimately, that's what's going to make me a winner.
Yeah.
I tell you what's intriguing about it is that these teams, I think they might cancel each other out. It might be a bit dull because they're both used to having like 60, 70% of the ball all the time. Well, both teams can't do that, even with my maths. So I think it's going to be really tight. I've got 1-0 to Spain in the end.
Now, USA-Belgium would in normal circumstances have been the kind of, not the headline feature, but we've got to get into this controversy if we're going to preview this match. So following Balogun, basically their best player, attacking player, plays for Monaco, I think I'm right in saying, was sent off in their previous match against Bosnia after a VAR check. Pundits seem split on whether he really should have been sent off or not. It's not black or white, right? It does seem that it might be orange, that you can make a case for a red or a case against a red. Nevertheless, that was the decision. After a VAR review, we haven't got any sort of case of mistaken identity or they wrongly sent off the person with the wrong shirt. And under this obscure Article 27 rule, apparently after being lobbied by Donald Trump, FIFA have decided essentially to waive his suspension, or he'll be able to serve it later, I think it is, where he could just serve it in an irrelevant friendly rather than in a crucial game against Belgium, and probably a fairly balanced game as well. There we've got him. He gets the red card, but Balogun immediately reaches for the trump card, and the trump card appears to have won. This is a total, absolute disgrace, in my view. We are re-refereeing matches. This is not a clear and obvious error. That could have been looked into at the time. It's outrageous that this man is allowed onto the pitch. I will be cheering on Belgium. The Belgium FA and UEFA are going spare about it. UEFA have intervened today. Paul, the world stands with Belgium now, doesn't it? And I say that as a convinced Atlanticist.
Yeah, me too. I'm not sure they do, actually. There's enough, particularly followers of this show, of Trump supporters that will quite enjoy the hubris. We don't actually know for real if Donald Trump did intervene. However, one thing I do know, having spoken about Donald Trump to some extent now for many years, if he has, he will tell us. And particularly if the US were to win tonight, he will definitely tell us that he is responsible for that. So we will find out in short time. I think look, FA rules, fairness, UEFA. I mean, I'm not a big fan of UEFA, to be honest, and I'm actually not a massive fan of Belgium. I just inherently don't like anyone else in Europe. I don't know what it is, but I would like to see Belgium win, but do you know what? My prediction isn't Belgium. My prediction is that US will win. They're the one home team that seems to be riding fairly high. I'm not suggesting Mexico were bad in any way. They just come up against a tremendous England team. Canada were lucky to get as far as they did, but I still fancy USA to do this. And if he was to score, well, would all hell break loose.
I mean, this is just outrageous. So, I mean, shouldn't we be appealing our red card in the match? I mean, and FIFA have provided no grounds at all for deciding to suspend the punishment so that he'll be able to miss some utterly irrelevant friendly against Honduras in 3 weeks' time. Glenn, look, I guess football authorities, they should never surprise you, really, but this is just way beyond the pale, isn't it?
I've not said this in this entire run of programs, but the game's gone if this happens, because the political interference, it means if America wins, there's going to be an asterisk against their name because of this. The irony is as well that under Trump, if it is Trump's intervention, or it could have just been sycophantino's, sucking up to Donald Trump, Balogun wouldn't actually qualify to play for America under Trump's new rules. So he's probably been quite hypocritical by intervening, but there we are.
Yeah. I think it's
a
shocker.
You know what? Sorry, Mark, I know we're in extra time. We really don't want me to add anything here, but wouldn't it be fantastic if ICE come charging onto the pitch with minutes to go, took him out, arrested him, and Belgium were winning 1-0? That would. I think that's what this World Cup needs. I mean, it's had everything else. Why not have an ICE raid?
Well, let's have a look at, I'll tell you the Belgium tactics. I think we showed this in a show a few weeks ago. If we got clip number 10, Glenn was telling us about the old, powerhouse Belgian team, some of them who are still there, one of whom is Romelu Lukaku, a tank of the man. This is how I'm hoping Belgium beat the United States of America, if we can call up clip number 10. That is a man, Paul, who can beat you at eating. Trust me, as well as beating you at football.
A touch of the moon belly as well there. He's obviously been on the old Tex-Mex. He's quite the player, isn't he? We always find, like, particularly obscure players that have maybe got some sort of physical anomalies about them. Peter Crouch, for instance, Peter Beardsley's face, obviously. That we always I don't know whether it's a British thing or no, we take the mickey a little bit, but I'd have Lukaku in my team. I mean, he wouldn't play ahead of Kane or maybe even Tony or anyone in particular. But I'd still have him in my team. He's a monster of a man, and he will be the sort of player that scores the winner in a game like tonight. Whereas he's just he's not distracted for a moment by the hot dog smells coming from the stand, and he just runs accidentally into the ball and it goes into the top corner.
So let's just remind us.
It's like a Rocky movie, isn't it? It's got one last punch in him.
Can we call up image number 10? I think it is. That's tonight's games and the predictions of my guests you've heard. But yeah, the Belgian Heskey knick-knack says, if we got image number 10, the predictions, I've got them on my phone here. Well, I've gone for Portugal 1, Spain 2. My guest went for 2-2. USA, Belgium. I've gone for 2-1 to Belgium. And the guest went for 1-1. Plenty more football to come. I should explain about a special show we're trying to put together for you tomorrow, because those of you who observe these things in depth might have noticed that tomorrow will be the first day without any World Cup fixtures. And for those of you who have followed my travel plans with interest, it's also the day I'm flying back to the UK at about lunchtime when this show goes out. However, fear not, we are going to stitch a show for you together. We're going to record that tomorrow, so it might not be wholly up to date, but believe it or not, there are some brilliant football fixtures happening on Wednesday evening, not in the World Cup, but elsewhere, so we'll be previewing those, and I've got a few guests joining me as well who I'll pre-record interviews, so don't worry, tomorrow we'll still go ahead. It won't be live, but it will be an hour of great entertainment. Paul, Glenn, thanks for joining me as our wingmen today. Look forward to seeing you again tomorrow after what, it's going to be difficult for either of these games tonight to match the excitement of yesterday, but I think we could still get 2 corkers. I've also got my Pooch's Pooch nomination for today, which is clip number 8. If you've got a dog think twice before you sit down and watch the football with it. Look how they follow the ball. Clip number 8 is my nomination for this show's Pooch's Pooch. Through. I think we're all going to need some sleep. Make sure you're up by 8 o'clock British summertime. Paul Glynn and myself will be with you again tomorrow and for the rest of the week for what is turning into, I think, one of the very best World Cups of my lifetime. The sheer excitement, the amount of drama. I know some people say there's too many games. You can never have too many games as football, as far as I'm concerned. So thanks for joining us. Make sure you join Mike again from 7 o'clock in the morning. Then switch over to UK Live Online at 10. Then our extra special show will be on Wednesday. We'll be back live tomorrow. On Wednesday, we'll have our extra special show at noon. So we'll be here at noon every single day. And to play us out again, let's just remind ourselves with clip number 2 that England did it. England did it. Mr. Moonbelly is out. We are through. Next up, Norway. Here's clip number 2 to play us out.